All right, I hereby call this meeting of the Midcoast Community Council to order for December 9th, 2015. Will the council members please introduce themselves?
Dan Haggerty.
Laura Stein.
Lisa Ketchum.
Dave Olson.
Chris Johnson.
Claire Toutant.
And Erin Deinzer is in transit and will join us as soon as she can. All right, our first item on the agenda is normally the supervisor's report, but neither of the supervisor's aides could be here this evening. Are there any other government representatives who wish to give a report? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. I have one speaker slip for public comment from Steve McGrath.
Thank you, and I could possibly have gone in the last item, but I have no report to give. I'd like to take this opportunity, though, to introduce myself. My name is Steve McGrath, and I am the new General Manager for the San Mateo County Harbor District. Today is my 30-day anniversary. I've been here a month, and I'm still drinking from the proverbial fire hose. I do want to stay in regular contact with the Midcoast Council. I recognize the value of these councils as conduits to the Board of Supervisors, and for me, by the means by which I can too communicate to the council and to the general public. I understand that your meetings are regularly, however, on the second and fourth Wednesdays. The Harbor Commission meetings are on the second and fourth Wednesdays, so no, we're on the first and third. Thank you very much. So, all right, so I should be able to be here on a fairly regular basis, just to come in, and if it is the request of the council that I prepare and deliver a report, I'd be happy to do that, and it'll just be a brief update on things that are going on at the Harbor District. But that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have, but again, I've been here 30 days. I don't even know what it is I don't know yet.
Yes, we would, speaking for the rest of the council, we would greatly appreciate it if you could deliver a brief report. It would be of interest to much of the community, I'm sure. And Lisa, I think you had one specific thing?
Yeah, I mean, Pillow Point Harbor is, you could say, the heart of the Midcoast. And thank you so much for coming and for offering this so we can have better collaboration. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we've got one letter into your office that we'll talk to you about at some point, but not tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. All right. So we will close public comment and move on to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, the minutes, approval of the minutes for November 18th. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for November 18th.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It carries unanimously, 6-0. Thank you. We'll move on to the regular agenda, and the first item on the agenda is the council annual reorganization. Do I have a nomination for the new chair?
Chris Johnson.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Yay, carries unanimously. With one abstention, or are you going to vote for yourself?
Yeah.
All right.
I recuse myself from that.
All right, and do we have a nomination for vice chair?
Yes, I would like to nominate Lisa Ketchum for vice chair.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right. Carries unanimously, 6-0. And next officer is treasurer. Do I hear a nomination for treasurer?
I would like to nominate Dave.
Well, we have another one. I'm going to turn that one down. But thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I trust you with our money.
Yes. Dan, do you want?
Nominate Erin.
All right. Do we hear a second?
Do we know if she's willing?
Yes, she is willing.
She's
I talked to her today.
I'll second that.
All right. And all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Carries unanimously. All right, 6-0. And finally, a new secretary.
I will nominate Dan.
All right. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have,
Well, I'll second.
and all in favor? Aye, all right, carries 6-0. Thank you very much.
That was easy.
And with that, I will now turn the meeting over to our new chair, Chris Johnson.
All right, the new era begins. Just real quick, since we don't have a Board of Supervisors report, I just want to say thank you to the last 3 chairs. That's the only experience I have, so I'm not making comment on any chairs that came before that, but Laura, then Lisa, then Dave. I really feel that the bar has been set exceptionally high, and that's a wonderful challenge that I readily accept, and my hope is that I can continue to do the great work that those 3 have done in presenting these meetings in such a way that they're beneficial to the community. So, saying that, let's move on to our regular agenda. And the second item on the agenda, item B, is the pre-application workshop for the Valamar Bluffs. And we're going to start, Dave Holbrook with the County Planning Department is going to come and make a presentation on both the nature of this pre-application hearing and also the process for the application process.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you very much, Dave Olson, for coordinating with us to have us host this pre-application meeting here. We often do them in other separate places. We've had, this is crowded, and I appreciate everybody's patience being here. We've had
Excuse
them.
me. Feel free to fill in and be
Yeah.
against the windows if you would like.
Great, thanks.
Get a little bit of.
We can all be very friendly here, just line up around
Okay.
the walls.
Thank you. That's great.
Just a little bit.
Thank you so much.
And there's also room for 1 or 2 more people to stand behind the last row of seats.
Right.
Yeah, really, come on in, all the way up, don't be shy, all the way up here.
Thanks, Lisa. So, a lot of you have been to a lot of these types of meetings. Before an application comes in, before it walks in the door quite officially for the process to really begin, the pre-application process is a way of actually introducing, and sometimes a rather schematic proposal. This one's a little bit further along, but a schematic proposal for a project that is on the heels of coming in. We do already have this project, but one of the things that came up very critically as we started to do our review and started to get just some internal comments, the Midcoast was very clear on this. There was a question asked. This would be a great project for a pre-application review. We agreed, and we're here this evening. And again, thank you for hosting it here. So what this is an opportunity to introduce the bare bones of this project. The applicant is here who will speak about it after myself, and he has one of his folks here with him as well. And it's to get early comments, not only so that we can hear from the community on the first blush, but also so that we can actually memorialize the comments in a letter, which I do in about a week. Lots of planners have handled these. This one's one that I'll be taking care of. And then we get that letter to everybody who, in fact, has signed, and there's a signatory list outside in the lobby. I've also placed one with the title of this at the top, San Mateo County. If you want to get emailed the letter I'm going to put together summarizing tonight's comments, if you want to get it mailed traditional style, put your name, your address, your email, we will keep track of that. And so that's why that list is out there. There are also lots more handouts, and thanks, Dave, for putting the handouts that you had. What we got from the applicant, I sent to Dave so that he could get that on your website. We also have this application in terms of what you're seeing this evening and a few other documents already on the county planning and building website. That will be updated as this process begins. And so before just letting the applicant go through the process, we have a piece of property that's zoned RMCZ. It's right at Juliana and Valamar on the Bluffs. It's about 2.5 acres. There are 7 parcels there. This is a project proposal for 6 single-family residences. As you've probably read, it requires a coastal development permit, a grading permit, a resource management permit. And what happens after this meeting, although I don't have any dates for you, but what's going to happen after this evening is we get the letter out. The applicant actually has the opportunity to hear the comments because they haven't done the full-blown revised plans for all the houses, elevations, site plans, everything. They will, but they haven't completed those revisions yet. And this is that chance for them to get early comments as well as for us and everybody to hear it. But the next step after this is going to be a rather traditional step that a lot of you are aware of here. This is in a design review district. So after the application formally comes in from the applicant, and I mean a complete application, not just what you're seeing this evening, this is going to be pulled together, more internal comments, more review, and eventually sent to the Coastside Design Review Committee, who meets here. Dennis Aguirre is our staff liaison. I will very likely come to that meeting as well. Those 6 homes relative to their design and the design review standards will be reviewed at that time. The Design Review Committee will have a couple of choices. They can bring it back, they can make a recommendation, and it's only a recommendation in terms of they're not making a decision because the process is really just beginning. After that, the next step of what staff will be doing will be looking at the environmental document and preparing that document in terms of whether it's an initial study, negative declaration, a mitigated negative declaration, I'm not sure yet, but our next step after design review would be the environmental document. I would suspect, and we're probably now looking into, early next spring, but I would suspect that what will happen with this kind of an environmental document and a 30 or a 21 or probably a 30-day review period is staff will get this before the Planning Commission probably twice. The first time will be during the review period of that environmental document because the Planning Commission and the public can come to that meeting and actually provide comments during the CEQA review period. And perhaps if it's just for that purpose, the Planning Commission will hear it a second time to actually consider it formally and make a decision. This project, of course, is appealable to the Board of Supervisors, and approvals are appealable to the State Coastal Commission. The State Coastal Commission knows about this project as we speak. They've gotten the preliminary information that you've seen here this evening, and that's how this is going to play out. I will likely stay on as the project planner for this project, going through the process, so I'm available and my email is listed. And like I said, that sign-up sheet outside will at least provide the opportunity for us to get you copies of the letter that I will generate summarizing this evening's comments. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Owen Lawler, is the applicant on behalf of the owners who own the properties.
Does the Coastal Commission get letters that have been sent to the county planning commission?
I often forward them along. Oftentimes, letters I get, if I see that they're CC'd to the Coastal Commission, but we have an analyst, Renee Ananda, who we typically forward on any emailed copies, or if I get anything in paper form, just to keep them more informed than not. Absolutely.
Okay, so come on up, Owen. The project applicant, Owen Lawler, and his team are going to make a presentation of their project right now. May I please remind the audience that please hold your questions. We'll have an opportunity to ask questions after the presentation is made. But one of the reasons we ask to hold questions is so that he can get his full thought out and make the full presentation. The other reason is these are not amplified microphones, but they are connected with the video recording that's going on. If you don't stand in front of a microphone, your question won't be heard. And then it'll be a kind of a one-sided conversation where we might hear an answer but not the question. So please hold your questions. I will make sure that everybody gets a chance to ask their question and also to make a public comment about this. So, Mr. Lawler, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I'm going to keep my comments very brief because we're mainly here to hear what you folks have to say. We've over the last couple of years, we've taken the time to really understand this really unique and exciting site. And we've gone to a lot of work to gather a lot of data about the site and to understand the site and the intricacies of this particular site. And we've also spent a lot of time understanding the local coastal plan, the county ordinances, and really getting getting ourselves familiar with the site. The goal here is to develop a plan that's consistent with the LCP and the county ordinances, and we have no intention and so that it's in the framework that's been created for development on sites like this. So thank you, by the way, for solving the technical problem. So now we've got the site up on the screen. So our presentation is going to be fairly informal. Again, we're here mainly to hear your folks' comments. My approach, or our approach to whenever I do any project, is to really assemble, first of all, a really qualified team of folks who really have the experience to understand, especially these very complicated and special sites, and really gather a complete set of data about the history of the site and what's going on, both from a biotic point of view, geologic point of view, and all the other resources that are related to the site. So a couple of the key team members are here tonight, but not all the team members. So Larry Pearson with the Pearson Design Group, and we're really fortunate to have Larry as part of the team. His experience in designing some really special places really has national recognition. And so we're working hard and Larry's done a great job, and we can go through the design of the individual homes, certainly, and at least the preliminary designs we have here. Now we have it up on the screen, we can go through that. I also suspect there's a lot of interest in the other characteristics of the site, the biology, the geology, and heading up that team is Mark Baginski with Verde Design. And Mark's been involved in a lot of complex and highly visible projects and brings a wealth of experience to kind of analyzing these sites and synthesizing the data that we collect and putting together an application package and addressing the issues of the site. So, I mean, I suppose I'm thinking out loud here, many of you, I suspect, have seen the plans on the website or have looked at it already. You've showed a lot of interest. We could walk through the design, or we could leave that for the question period. We could I guess I want to say one more thing before I wrap up. We've got three other members of the team that weren't here. Mark Fox with Hara Kucinich, who's a coastal geologist who's done the analysis of the wave erosion, both historic and the projected wave erosion going forward. Mike Zander with Zander Associates has looked at the biotic of the site, and we've been studying the site since 2012, looking at what is really growing on the site, and we have a really good handle on what the issues are out there. And then Rodney Cahill is our civil engineer. It's looked at the drainage issues and all of the related issues, like to drainage and minimizing erosion. So,
Owen?
yes.
Maybe I can jump in and help you out here a little bit.
Sure.
I expect that, or suspect that many people have already looked at the plans, but maybe like a 5-minute overview of okay. how many sites are we talking about here? How many?
Sure.
What's your thought process on why they're maybe located in these specific locations? Just kind of a 30,000-foot view, because I suspect that there's some specific questions and points that people want to discuss. So if we just can get the overview, I think we can then get into more meatier stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. So let me take a step back for a minute and talk about the site. The site, 7 lots. We've chosen to design homes on 6 of the lots. Each of the lots is a different shape and different dimensions, so each home is really unique, mostly unique. And so the setbacks in the RMCC zone district are 20 feet on each side, so that means there's 40 feet between the homes, and the front yard setback is 50 feet. So you know, they're fairly large. All the parcels are over, the smallest parcel is over 11,000 square feet, so they're quite large. They're quite large, particularly compared to most of the lots in this neighborhood. And so Lot A is the largest lot, and on the northern end of the parcel, and that lot is over, I believe, over 22,000 square feet. Lot G and B are approximately, 12 to 15,000 square feet. We've designed a combined driveway to serve both B and G off of Valmar. And while I'm talking about that, and Mark can talk more about this, all of the sites will use pervious paving materials to, minimize the amount of runoff. And we can get into a lot of detail in that, and we will in how we minimize runoff and how we basically hold runoff to pre-development levels. And then Lot C, we've chosen at this time not to design a house for, not to apply for a house on Lot C at this time. Lots F, E, and D front Juliana, and again, those houses will have 40 feet between each house and a 50-foot front yard setback consistent with the zone district regulations. There'll be small bridges built to serve the driveways over the existing drainage channel on Juliana, and into so we don't disturb the work that County Public Works has done out there in the past to make a nice pervious drainage swale out there. And so the houses, I think, and we can go into square footages and so forth, maybe when we go, can we move to the next? I think we could, just gives you a little sense of the design palette. I think we can, Larry can talk more about later if you wish into the material choices, but basically we're choosing materials that we think are compatible with the site, natural material and roof, and that we think will really allow the houses to feel part of the site. And I'll leave that at that. I think the rest of this pictures, the rest of the sheets, I'm sorry, are more architecture sheets. There's probably, we can go back to the website and we can look at some of the landscape pictures from Mark's office if I think
That's this one?
I believe so, yes. So this is, just quickly, this is the existing conditions, and we've looked at the biotic issues. It's is a highly impacted coastal prairie grassland, and we've detailed the different vegetation types, and for the most part, we've stayed out of the most sensitive parts of the site. I think at this point, we can go through the next slides, and we've done it. There's a lot of work. We've analyzed each tree. We've looked at how to maintain the trees, and Mark can talk a lot about the choices we've made around the health of the trees and how we're trying to save the best species. But mainly, we'll look forward and how we come up with a strategy that not only maintains the existing trees, but looks more of a tree management strategy that looks forward and how do you keep these trees healthy going forward. The trees on the site right now are very unhealthy and they're not native, and there's a lot of, and our arborist who works with Mark has put together an extensive report on the details of that. I can continue to go through the rest of this. Is that this something, or does people want to go to questions, I guess is my question.
I think, and I think if you're comfortable, let's go to questions, because I believe that people are going to have specific questions, and then
Yes.
people are going to want to make specific comments, and I think as a result of the specific questions, we can get to those details
That's
rather
what
than
I'm thinking too.
trying to guess what the details are that people are looking for. So before we go to the public, I'd like to ask the council, does anybody on the council have any clarifying questions that they would like to ask Owen, Larry, or Mark?
I have several, but I don't know if I should wait till after the people.
No, if you've got a question to clarify a specific thing that you would like to know more information about,
Okay.
please go ahead.
But
Yeah,
clarifying more than comments.
Yes. Right now, we're going to start with questions. First, questions from the council, clarifying questions. You said this, but I read in here this. Can you clarify that for me? We will also have an opportunity to make a comment. I feel this way about it. I don't think this is right. I think this is great. So two separate things. Right now, we want to get specific questions to get more information out there. Claire?
I had a couple questions on the geophysical report, which was, very thorough. One is, if we had that other slide that was just up there a minute ago, I guess I could show you right here on this one.
Well, let's see.
See how this juts in here? There's
Mhm.
uneven,
Yeah.
Yeah, you saw it. The uneven erosion there.
Mhm.
That section there has been eroding at a much higher rate than any place else. And it looks to me as though if that continues to erode faster than everything else, you're really going to lose at least one of those lots, and definitely going to lose the coastal trail. So I'm wondering about whether, how viable Lot B and D, I think they are, actually are going to be in the long term. And the other question I had, I'll just give them both to you right now.
Sure.
About that report is you said you had taken into consideration earthquake activity. And there is an earthquake fault about, within sight of the property. So I'm wondering, what type of quake you were allowing for.
Well, I'll answer the first one. We're going to design for the largest likely earthquake that could occur on the site. But let me take your first question. So that rivulet, that erosion that you pointed out, I talked to Mark Fox actually today about this, and I checked in with him. So that's mainly caused by runoff from up above, not from sea action. So one of the, and that's what's impacted the Strand Trail there. One of the important aspects of our project is to redirect that drainage over in a way that minimizes the loss of the bluff from erosion above. And so that's, and so the design guidelines actually that Mark put together, Mark Fox and our use the most conservative estimates of erosion. And there was a question that came up regarding the different characteristics of the northern and southern parts of the site, and I talked to him about that. So what the report characterizes is the most conservative erosion rates based on essentially the worst condition.
I'll let other people make comments.
Other members of the council, questions, clarifying questions?
No, I don't have
No?
I do have one.
Yes, Dave.
One question. So I sent this off to Dave Holland. I think he passed it on to you. The original comment was that the existing trail would not be impacted by this development, but it looks to me as though the existing trail actually crosses onto the property line in several places. I couldn't tell that for sure because I don't have a survey. Do you know if that's the case?
Yeah, there's a survey in the package, and the trail at this point comes very close to the property line on Lot C, but it does not, maybe slightly comes onto the property. And we're aware that there's a concern about keeping the trail access, and our goal will be that trail access be maintained for public as long as possible. And we think that'll be many, many years.
Well, that brings up a question.
Yes. Well, I'll let the question, you don't,
Just wait one sec. We'll get a chance for the public. Lisa, did you
So
have a question?
that brought up a question for me. It looked like on the plans there was a perimeter fence on the parcels. Is that true?
We've got Mark can talk more about the landscape, and Larry, we've got a low fence that we're thinking that would, similar to the condition that you see when you walk farther up the Strand, the other homes that were built at the farther end, there's a low wall and some of the.
Specifically, just on the western side. Is
Right.
there going to be a fence at the property line?
Well,
on the
we're
west
considering
side?
putting a low fence, yes, not a tall fence, but like a low fence, yes.
All right.
Well, how high is the fence, Mark?
It was plenty to.
Yeah.
You can just speak out
Okay.
loudly for now.
What we were thinking originally was like a grape stake type of fence, some with weathered wood, low, 42 inches high.
42 inches.
Okay, and for the video, grape stake style fence, not necessarily grape stake, 42 inches.
So basically, so people couldn't walk there.
Correct.
Other questions from the council? No. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to open up to questions from the public. Again, this is not your comment, I feel this way. This is you're requesting specifically an additional piece of information or clarification. We'll have a chance for additional public comment, but we're trying to flesh out questions that people have. If you have a question, please step up to the lectern and give us your name and your town that you're from.
I'm Ann Forrester. I'm from Lost Beach. Don't go away. I have a question for you.
One sec. Owen, if you'd like to sit here, this microphone is live, so you will be recorded on that, and you can have a kind of a back and forth.
You just mentioned that you had planned to have trail access for people for some period of time. I would like to know what period of time you planned for. When you considered trail access, for what period of time did you consider that?
So you're referring to the Strand Trail in front
Yes,
of
I
the
am.
property?
Correct.
Indefinitely. I mean, in other words, our project doesn't change the dynamics of whether people have access along that trail. We want that trail continues to be maintained. It's public property, it will always be public property. We think that if we solve that slope erosion problem, that the runoff coming from above, the trail will last longer. But whether we build anything or not, that trail is subject to erosive in that area. I think that's what people are concerned about, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
That somehow this project will limit access to that trail, and that's not our
I'm
intent.
kind of missing something here, because I've walked that trail a lot.
Uh-huh.
If I'm going along one of the parcels that's the closest to the trail, and I have a fence here,
Oh, okay. I
and
understand.
then I'm going along the trail, and there are spots where it literally is a foot from the edge of the bluff,
Mhm.
and it continues to erode, how am I going to continue to have a place to walk? I don't swim well. So I'm confused.
No, I understand. So there's enough ways to solve that problem. We have enough land there that we can solve it. I'm not concerned that this project in any way I think there's an opportunity to improve the access, actually.
Okay, I have one other question then, which is, did your project plan in any way include coastal armoring?
No, never
you.
will and does not.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, right here.
Again, anybody out in the back room, if you want to come in, there is room to stand against the wall, so invite you to come in if you like.
So thank you. I'm Casey Shelfer. I'm from Lost Beach. One of the things that kind of stands out looking at this plan is that every house has a two-car garage and at least four to six parking spots total designated in the plans already. That's an awful lot of parking. And that means an awful lot of the lot coverage is going to be granted permeable, but it's going to be driving, it's going to look like asphalt or something very similar too. So why have you put in so much parking for residential houses?
Good question. I'm going to answer it generally, but I'm going to turn it over to Larry. One of the issues with having these long setbacks is we have long driveways to get to the houses. It's not our intent to, we don't want to pave any more of this site than we need to get cars to the garage and turn around. So, but again, our intent is to minimize the paved area as much as we possibly can.
Each of these houses has some of them have, look at what's called motor court. And, on lot F, there's two cars in the garage, and there's room for 4 more cars, maybe 5 if you're careful. Lot D, there are definitely room for 2 cars, plus more up on the end by the garage. Lot A, there's the 2-car garage, and room for at least 3 there, plus cars. So that's an awful lot of off-street, that's an awful lot of parking. Why have you provided that much parking?
So let me turn it over to Larry Pearson. I'll let him.
Yeah, and I can stay there. Hello, my name is Larry Pearson. I'm the architect on this, and I have kind of laid out parking and the garage circulation kind of pathway. As Owen said, most of these have a 50-foot setback. The houses that are around in this neighborhood are more typical to have a 20-foot setback to the garage. I'm committed to not having the garages face the street, and one of my design criteria in laying these homes out, we're trying to eliminate or reduce the number of garages facing the street. I think kind of architecturally and from a community perspective, I think that's a less than desirable goal if you could avoid it. So the circulation for the vehicles, for parking, kind of incorporates that thinking. I have, in these designs as schematically identified right now, I've provided 2 cars of parking for each of these that are not associated with the garage. Obviously, the garage provides covered parking. I have 2 guest parking spots. I've tried to identify each of these sites. There is a turnaround or backup areas that additionally are required off of that garage. Obviously, if you park any guests behind the garage, you wouldn't be able to back up out of the garage without having your guest move first. So it was my goal to separate the guest parking and not bind the garage with guest parking. Also, these lots are as Owen was saying earlier, are typically maybe 4 times larger than some of the residential sites that are adjacent to this. So it affords us a little bit more flexibility in how we orient the garage, how we provide for guest parking. As Owen identified earlier, the surfaces will be also, it will not be asphalt. So you won't be preventing percolation into the ground. So it's part of our philosophy to be able to have permeable surfaces.
I would point out that lots, I hear what you're saying. I understand the potential aesthetic, to which I would question the fact that lots D and E have parking lots that face the street. So any aesthetic you're going to gain by not having the garage face the street, you're making up with parking lots. But I assume that that's a matter of taste. I think I've got my question answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Larry. Sir?
Yeah, my name is Mike Shell. I live on Winky Way. I found the answer to the fence is not quite sufficient. And I've been out there for 18 years, and I've seen all the erosion. And the erosion, as you say, is all from the water on the top side. And if you are indeed going to put fences on the property line, and you say, as long as possible, we're going to maintain that trail. I see no way that if you're going to put fences on the property line, that you're going to maintain that trail for any length of time, particularly this year with the El Nino coming. I've seen every single bit of the erosion on that bluff top coming from the water on the top side. Every one of those houses is going to decrease the amount of permeable soil. We've seen it before when all the drilling has been done for the wells with all the trucks, all the tractors up there. They have compacted the soil, and that has even created a quicker erosion than would normally take place. And when you say we'll try to deal with the trails as long as possible, I don't know what that means. That could be 2 days, could be 2 weeks, could be 10 years. I don't know what that means. And I really think that from my experience of living out there and seeing the erosion, I don't think you have a chance in hell of having those fences up there on the property line and keeping those trails in place.
So, let me speak to the fences. Nothing in this plan is set in stone, and we're here really to hear it. You folks have a lot of experience living out there. And we don't, I didn't mean to imply anything, that anything set in stone about where these fences are located or how they're designed. All we're trying to say is we recognize there's an erosion issue there, and we want to find the most effective, sensitive way to address it as part of this project. That's my only comment on that, really. And we understand that's what we're trying to achieve. And I didn't mean to imply, I'm just saying that we want to understand this issue fully, and we want to address it. That's
When you say it's on the property lines,
I
fences, I understand.
So
The other,
we'll take that comment, and we're gonna, I want to get with all of us. Part of this is to gather information for us and to learn so that we can come back and address these things fully. So
the other question I had was in regards to Lot C.
Mhm.
And you mentioned there's no plans at this point in time on building on there. What does that mean for the future?
Well, that means that at this time, we think that it makes the most sense to apply for 6 homes. And I understand it raises questions, and I understand that, and I'm just say that we believe in this process, that answer will be sorted out in a way that to everybody's satisfaction. And I don't have an answer exactly to the question. I understand the question, but we've made a decision at this point that we're gonna submit applications for 6 homes.
So does that mean in the future you have no intent on building on those lots? If you represent all the property owners on that
I do
7 lots.
We do represent all 7 properties.
So if I were a property owner out there, said, I would want to have a house on that lot.
No, let me explain this
I
process.
don't quite understand.
Okay, so I understand the question. Let me try to address it. This is one project, and so it's our decision how many homes we applied for, and it's not a concern of the underlying property owners at this time whether we choose to build a home or not. I only approached this project with the opportunity to make design decisions for the entire site. I'm not making any of these decisions on individual properties. We're viewing this as one project, and we think this is an appropriate for 6-home project.
Well, based on your answer, I would assume that at some point in time, a 7th home would be placed there.
I wouldn't make that assumption.
Well, as a...
I can't, what I'm saying is I can't answer that tonight the way you'd like it answered, but I understand the concern.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. We'll have this lady that was standing right behind the lectern, and I'll...
Hello, I'm Barbara Cossie. I live in Moss Beach. I've enjoyed walking that trail for many years. I've recently, our property in Moss Beach just received a water pollution prevention water garden sponsored by the County of San Mateo and the State Water Prevention Water Board. And one of the benefits of the water garden is that the water is captured from the roof and it goes into a catchment system and it never sheets off the surface. And it never runs down, doesn't capture any pollution, doesn't capture any erosion. So I was surprised to see these 6 homes that will be multi-million-dollar homes, no doubt, with every kind of environmental, not every kind, but, you know, many environmental features and landscaping and so on, but no water catchment system. So have you considered using water gardens and water catchment systems and then putting native plants perhaps in the water gardens?
Yeah, well, yeah, Mark's got a lot of experience in this area,
So Mark, definitely use a microphone on this one. Thank you.
I'll trade this.
So, in short, the answer is, yes, we do plan to incorporate when you look at stormwater management these days throughout the state, it's a very complex issue. We really changed policy as a state on how we manage stormwater. And so the intent for this project is to find as many ways as possible that we can infiltrate the water back into the ground and to prevent surface erosion and the carrying of material. Our civil engineer on the team is working on the calculations that identify that amount of runoff. And then in turn, we have identified only quantifiably in the civil plans an area that is a infiltration area that equates to the amount of runoff that comes off the roof. But the intent in the long term, as these plans mature and we get input, is to identify those areas and create the best suitable habitat for that site that accomplishes the goals of limiting that erosion and maintaining the character of the site.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Sills. I live in Moss Beach on Winky Way. So I'm curious as to whether there have been any surveys or studies done about the potential impact on the value of the surrounding homes. I realize that that's probably not the responsibility of your project, but I'm curious about it. And the reason is that one of the things I love about this neighborhood is how mixed it is. We have little tiny houses that have been there for 30 years, and then you have houses that were built in the 70s like ours, and then some newer properties. And even though I moved there only 9 years ago and I bought at the very top of the market, and part of me wants to see the economy continue to rebound and see that my house is not upside down. I also feel really strongly that it's important to not let the cost of living in this neighborhood go out of control. And there are other neighborhoods on the coast that I actually did not want to live in because the houses were too much the same and too new and too large. So I'm just curious as to whether you have had any sort of studies around that aspect of what this project might do to the neighborhood.
We haven't studied that, and it's an interesting question. I would just say, I share your concerns about the spiraling cost of housing. We think this project, especially we've tried to keep the houses pretty modest for what could be very, very expensive homes. The sizes are around 3,000 or less. We think that given the setback and the minimum, the amount of setbacks in relation to the homes, that it's going to be, for instance, be less dense than the homes right across Juliana on the way down to Winky there, because there's 5 homes there that are on small lots. So this is going to feel a lot more open than that, I'd say. I can only say, homes are going up whether this project goes forward or not. And I don't know if we can do much about that.
I was curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Leonard.
I'm not sure who can address this question. What was the ownership pattern of all of these lots in 1980? Was it a single owner, Dave?
I can tell you.
Dave, I'm sorry, can you go up to the mic?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So what I can tell you is in about, and I have the information in the file, but probably in about 85 or 86, Dick Charnock bought these two parcels entirely. Well, there were two parcels, two APN numbers originally. And what the ownership pattern was prior to him purchasing it, I don't know. As a lot of people know, this is a remnant of a 1908 Moss Beach Heights subdivision, and there were about 40 or 41 lots that by the time Dick Charnock bought it in the late 80s, it had been made into two parcel numbers. I don't know why it was two parcel numbers as opposed to one. That could have something to do with the ownership pattern prior to Mr. Charnock, but I know that Charnock owned it for many years, and we spoke, he owned it when the first proposal for the well came in. And then at some point, we realized that he had sold it because we started hearing from various property owners sometimes separately over the next many years. But I don't know what the ownership pattern was prior to him having it.
All right, let me cover why I asked the question, and it's critical that the county gets solid documentation on this. First of all, you have to find out when the RMCZ ordinance was passed, which I'm assuming was 1980, but it could have been later. And early in the RMCZ zoning section, it says, all parcels 5 acres or larger in size which were legally in existence at the time of the enactment of this ordinance shall continue to be legal parcels. Parcels smaller than 5 acres in size, screen just went into screensaver. Parcels smaller than 5 acres in size shall continue to be legal parcels only if no adjacent property was in the same ownership at the time of enactment of this ordinance, or if a potable on-site water source had been developed on the parcel. So that the potable water source doesn't apply. So if these were in common ownership at the time the RMCZ ordinance was passed, then they could only build one house on this land.
Yes, staff has a position different than that. But the interesting history is, and I just say that historically, because we've been talking with owners, including Mr. Charnock, back from, that was the first time this project, and this property really came to our attention, was when he got a hold of it. He came in, and there were questions that went to the director, to our county attorney, relative to, are we merging, or are we doing a lot line adjustment? And remember, in 1980, up until probably about 1997, we processed lot line adjustments administratively without coastal permits because our exemption criteria allowed it. By the time the first well got drilled and went all the way to the board and was appealed to the board, appealed to the Coastal Commission, they did issue a letter. I have it in the file. A couple of people here have it. They issued a letter that kind of began the challenge of lot line adjustments without coastal permits. And since that time, we have actually not done any lot line adjustments without pulling the coastal development permit process with it. As to what Leonard is talking about, the only reason I said we've historically disagreed is we were very aware of the merger provisions in that paragraph in the RMCZ zoning. It says the same thing in the non-coastal zone RM district. And from what I've heard, and I was not privy to the conversations that actually got Mr. Charnock as far as us giving the green light to the lot line adjustment. I handled the lot line adjustment, but believe me, I had not been there long at that time. And one of the things that came back to us that a couple of people actually still recollect today, and we are, believe me, we're not going to blow off that question. It's a critical question. We realize the legal status of these parcels, the number of parcels is going to come up. So we're prepared to do a little bit more study on that. But one of the things about, there's no minimum lot size number one in the RM district or in the RMCZ district. The merger provisions, when we went through the checklist, and this is just what I've been told so far, the merger provisions, we didn't have a set of subdivision regs that dealt with mergers. We had the State Map Act deal with mergers on and their criteria. The merger provisions actually have a lot of criteria, but and they do talk about common ownership, et cetera, so I can see why the question was asked. But They speak to merging when lots were less than 5,000 square feet. So that's something we want to check in and get a firmer handle on. But that the two parcels originally were certainly greater than 5,000 square feet. They were looking at the parcels as identified by APNs. And that they did not choose, at least the direction from, I can tell you, the director and the county attorney at the time, or our county council, did not choose or state to Mr. Charnock, you can't do a lot line adjustment to get several lots out of this property. In fact, we are going to force a merger. That was not the conclusion that the director and council came to. And then, like I said, the veracity of the lot line adjustment itself, which was recorded in 1980, and then really did not come up as an issue of contention until the first well was drilled. But before that, it was appealed to the Coastal Commission. And in and around that time, we did have the letter from the Coastal Commission who did indeed speak to lot line adjustments representing development. Thus, and I think there were also some court cases happening up and down the state at that time that drove them to that. So I know that's not a totally satisfying question, but I just wanted to say, historically, as we've occasionally taken out what information we have, particularly as Mr. Charnock moved forward, we've indicated to various owners that the parcel legality status of this is certainly not concrete relative to the Coastal Commission making it clear to Mr. to the well applicant back in the day that they didn't consider it concrete. We never heard from him after that relative to this property. Of course, nothing's happened on this property until the current project.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, to summarize that, I think that it's not incorrect to say that the legality of the parcels in question are still in question, and that's something that I think you guys need to consider going forward. We're not resolving it now. I'm just saying that I know that that's on the mind of a lot of people. Okay, Leonard, thank you for the question. Just a sec, Bill. Do we have Bill? You're up. Well, I know you've got the killer questions.
No, I don't, actually. Leonard got my good one, but it took parting. I always feel like you really don't want to hear from me, and you look everywhere else saying, can I listen to something? I'm Bill Keel from West Beach. I'm sorry, I should introduce myself. So I want to thank the Midcoast for presenting this tonight. I actually want to thank the county for coming out here so that the neighbors have a chance to do comments on this. I can remember back before we had the MCC, we all had to drive over the hill during business hours to get any information, so this is great. It shows the MCC at least is working on that level. My question is just pretty simple. I didn't even have it when I came here, but during the presentation, when they were showing the elevation side of the proposed housing, they all seem to be 3 stories. There's the ground story where the cars come in. There's the main level where there's, actually I had some better ones than that, but you can probably see it on that one.
Let me blow it up.
With the main level and then an upper level. And I can remember Morse Beach used to be pretty much single floor houses. Everybody was on the same level. Over the past 10 to 20 years, of course, the single levels began getting what we call the, yeah, well, no, 2 stories. It began just getting bigger and bigger, so you have a big muscle house next to a tiny little thing. And now I'm looking at this where there's basically 3. That's not the good one because that looks like it's only 2. It's the one that had the car parked in front of it. My big question is, what's the height level on these? Are they going to be 3 stories? The real concern here is on the west side of Moss Beach. There's only a few 2-story ones. It's mostly 1 stories, and that's because it's on the view corridor. And if anybody's been out here for a while, when you commute from Montero down to Half Moon Bay, you used to be able to see the ocean for 60 to 70% of the way, and we're losing it. And so if we go from 1 to 2 to 3, then I want to know when we get the 4-story houses. So that's my comment question.
So rhetorical question, Bill?
No, I just wanted a little bit more on the elevation heights, what they plan to build.
Again, this is Larry Pearson, and as the architect, I did spend a fair amount of time, actually more than a fair amount of time, analyzing the regulations in terms of height analysis for these sites. And I did, so these meet all the county standards that have been presented to me in terms of analysis of grade and roof and center line of roof pitch. So these are, I mean, these are schematics at this point, so, you know, they're hand-drawn drawings, so it doesn't mean that they're perfectly scaled. And yes, there is a low kind of, maybe we call it more of an attic level space, but there is some of those upstairs that do have 7 and 8 foot heights in a portion of them. I would say that if we chose to kind of execute on that, you know, there might be less than 200 or 300 square feet of space that could be on that 3rd floor of the house. Or it could be more of a trussed location with the roof structure and more storage. But yes, there is some space on that 3rd floor. I think of it more of a expanded attic space in these current, in some of these current designs, not all of them.
Can I ask a clarifying point on that? I don't know what the grading is going to be like. If these things are 50 feet from the road and, you know, the slope is maintained more or less the way it is now, the height relative to the highway is going to be not all that high. If you're raising up the grade and you're building a 3-story house, it's going to be quite high. So I don't know about what that looks like.
Yeah, in almost all these homes, I have kind of set the home lower in the grade or at the minimums for the grade relationship. So in no cases have I kind of built these houses up. I've kind of pushed them down as a kind of a design concept. And because of Valamar and Coast Highway 1 being above these sites, actually, it's really minimally impactful from those view corridors on the highway, as well as because the majority of the house is kind of below that datum, that elevation.
Larry, per Bill's question, the ordinance for the RMCZ zoning area specifies no residential structure shall exceed 28 feet in height. Do you propose for any of these structures to be 28 feet or higher?
I did review with the planner exactly those and did read the ordinances, and they comply or are lower than those regs.
So none of these structures are intended to be 28
No, we're not asking for any variance.
Let me ask one different question. Once these are graded, what is the highest point above grade that you expect the roof line to be?
I'm sorry, I can't give you that elevation right now, but certainly in the course of developing working drawings on this, we can provide an exact answer to those elevations.
Because it looks like on your not-to-scale drawings, it's like 34 feet.
And with the regulation, and there's a graphic which I don't think you probably have access to right now, which is the published standards for evaluation.
Right. I'm not asking about standards. I'm just asking what is your expectation?
Yeah, and maybe it is. I'm saying that 28 feet is the center line of gable to average grade, and that's we are under that and compliant with that.
So you expect it to be over 28 feet?
Some of them, the peak will be over 28. Yes.
I think that's what people were trying to ask.
Oh, okay.
Do we have? Yes, sir. Do you have a question?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Actually, it's 2 questions.
Okay.
One's kind of a follow-on to the last one here.
Please state your name and your...
Yeah, Lawrence Flath. I'm actually, if you pull up the Google Maps, your 3 houses on Valamar are actually a beeline between me and the ocean. So that last question is actually kind of relevant. One of the questions I kind of have is, I don't have a problem with people building your houses. I mean, my house wasn't there 50 years ago. That's not really the issue. But have you considered, in order to get your square footage, to maybe build basements instead of going up? I mean...
Well, one of the dialogues that we're always kind of working towards these solutions, and this is probably the format in which we start to identify these concerns. My previous concepts, which I did submit, were lower because our interpretation of the setbacks it was a 10-foot side yard setback and a 20-foot front yard and rear yard setback, which then allowed my program to be more selective and lower in terms of the house elevations. We were informed that our interpretation of those setbacks were incorrect. Thus, 50-foot front yard setbacks, 20-foot side yard setbacks, and some of that program did push the house a little bit higher than they previously were in that first conceptual design. But the advantage of those reduced setbacks is that you do create a 40-foot corridor between the houses.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking about outside. I'm talking about, can you actually get your 3,000 square feet, can you have 1,500 underground,
yeah.
right?
I set the grade elevations on the two homes on D as well as E. Actually, D, I think I have it 12 inches below grade in terms of well, actually, do I have 12 inches? Anyhow, it's basically on grade, so I've pushed those down as far as I can. The main living spaces below grade would not be something that would probably be viable. But yes, I guess there is always a conversation that you can place some components of this below grade.
Second thing is, maybe I missed it, but is there any indication of are there going to be additional street lights or anything like that are providing more? Because I came from the East Bay where I could barely see the moon at night, and I actually like seeing the Milky Way.
We have no proposed lighting at this point. Obviously, as part of this process, there would be.
I mean, the street is all getting torn up right now, I don't know if that's because of you guys or that's just sewer or whatever that is that's going in right now. But yeah, but it'd be really nice, if I was just kind of wondering if there are going to be more power lines and more street lights and everything else, and really like to avoid that.
Sure. Understand that. We would too.
Okay.
Thank you, Lawrence. Oh, one sec, Casey. So we're getting pretty far along in the evening to make sure that we all get to bed still on this day. What I would like to do now is move on to the public comment period. If you had a burning question that you weren't able to ask during the question period, maybe you could envelop that in your comments. This is the time now to make your comment. I feel this way, I think this way, I want you to think about this. We have a lot of people here tonight, so I'm going to ask Laura to set a timer for 3 minutes. Now, I'm not trying to limit public comment, but I want to make sure that everybody that wants to make a comment gets a chance to make their comment. Also, I would like to please ask that everybody be respectful in this process. I know that this is an emotional issue. That's a very meaningful piece of land for the people on the coast side, myself included. But let's be respectful, let's listen, and let's have this dialogue go on so that we can get to an end result that we can all be pleased with. All right, so I'm now going to open this for public comments. I have a set of speaker slips that have already been submitted to me. I'm going to go through these in the order they were presented to me. If you would like to make a comment and you have not already submitted a speaker slip, please bring one up to me before you speak. Leonard, I see you waving to me. What's up?
Well, I was told some meetings back that I don't need to submit speaker slips, but I have comments with visuals that you really need to get to tonight. I wanted to make sure that my comments aren't too off too long.
Okay, Leonard, I will make a note of that. I want to capture these comments in the order they were presented to me, but I've got you now listed in the queue. Okay? All right, first up, we have Tony Corelli.
That's a good idea.
It might, could somebody in the back, maybe Bob, and maybe you could open that window just a little bit as well?
The speaker slips, if you need one, are back in the antechamber back there.
And please make sure you sign in so that we can communicate with you further.
Okay.
Hey, Tony, thank you.
Yes, my name is Tony Corelli, and I'm a botanist. I've lived on the coast for over 25 years. I'm here to speak about the plant assemblage on Valamar Bluff.
This habitat is a remnant coastal bluff prairie that once dotted the San Mateo coast for miles and acres before development, and this shows that slide. The next slide shows the habitat of the coastal prairie. It supports 4 rare plants, one of them that doesn't occur anywhere else in the world. Next slide. I've delineated the coastal prairie myself with this map, and although it is degraded, it still is considered coastal prairie by the native plants that are there. And the next one, I'm just going to show you the plants. The harlequin lotus, next. The Johnny Nip, next. The Bladesdale bent grass, which was just discovered this year, next. And the last one is the coast yellow leptosiphon, which was first found here and collected in 1901 by Alice Eastwood. The next slide shows the herbarium specimen that Alice Eastwood collected in 1901. She said it was collected in Blenheim, and Blenheim is a previous name of Moss Beach, before it was Moss Beach. And when she collected this type specimen, the next slide, she said that it covered the ground for several acres but was seen in no other place and is probably a strictly local species. It is perhaps the most strikingly beautiful species. Great masses almost monopolized the ground. Well, there aren't acres of this habitat left anymore in all of San Mateo County, and this coastal prairie provides a natural buffer zone to protect this last remaining population. It is essential that we save and protect this coastal prairie grassland and this last assemblage of these 4 rare plants that occur on the Valamar Bluffs.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. Okay, next up we have Lenny Roberts.
Hi, I'm Lenny Roberts. I'm speaking for Committee for Green Foothills, and I've already sent a letter in that is posted on the MCC website.
That's right.
So if anybody wants to read the whole thing, I'm not going to read the whole thing. You'll be glad to hear. But we have been involved in this property as it made its way through the previous proposals, one to drill an initial well and possibly up to 18 test wells because there was no water available. And that was for one house on Lot D at the time. And as Tony has said, this is a real jewel, a remnant of the coastal prairie. And it's also a jewel of open space and a place for people to go and appreciate the coast on the trail that runs across the bluffs. And the mature cypress trees also provide roosting and foraging habitat for raptors, including winter raptors, which is a special habitat as well. So we have already outlined our concerns about the parcel legality issue, and I'm glad you got that habitat. So the habitat that Tony has outlined is a larger, more extensive mapping than the applicants have provided. But in fact, habitat doesn't have to be pure. It can be degraded. It can be only partially there. But under the Coastal Act and our county coastal plan, that habitat must be protected. It's called environmental ESHA, or environmental sensitive habitat area. So the other issue is that I see that is going to limit this project to a greater degree than what the applicants have already evaluated is the coastal bluff erosion, and the mapping that's been done so far is a pretty generalized 28-foot setback based on the initial engineering report. However, I think because there are 2 separate rates of erosion on this property, the northern part has a rocky substrate and is a more resistant. It has a low erosion rate, and the southern part has a high erosion rate according to the county maps, geologic hazards maps. So we also think that they sort of leveled off that indentation that is so prominent there. They've not really provided an adequate projection of that. And, you know, I heard what you said tonight, Owen, and I want to thank you all for coming, all your team for coming and listening to everybody, and for the Midcoast Council and the county for holding this workshop. The other, let's see, public access, I'm sure other people are going to talk about public access, and the other important LCP policy is 8.5, which requires that new development must preserve the visual and open space qualities of the site. We feel that the 3 large residential structures on the open grasslands on Lot B, D, and E are going to significantly impact those scenic views to and along the coast from Juliana and from the coastal trail. And we are hoping and to work with the applicant to revise this project so that the whole area that's outlined in on Tony's map will be preserved, and it will need some kind of permanent protection, and that will also be able to allow the coastal trail to move inland as the bluff erodes. So we would like to work, we've done this before with some other projects, but we'd like to offer to work with the applicant and interested neighbors and so forth to see if there can be a revised project that would have fewer homes and they would be located outside of that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. Next up, James Lockhart.
Yes, good evening, James Lockhart. We're on Winky Way in Moss Beach. My wife Kathy is here with me. We'd like to point out several considerations that we think argue against the development in its present form, and we'd like to see it, as Lenny Roberts mentioned, reduced in area so that these impacts could be minimized. We've written a letter to Mr. Holbrook, and that's posted on the MCC site as well. The Belmar Bluffs land there is a unique piece of undeveloped coastal zone. It's never been built on. It's, as Tony has said, a very rare coastal prairie habitat that contains several rare and endangered plant species, as well as being a raptor habitat. That coastal prairie also needs a bit of a buffer zone between it and houses, so that houses aren't put just at the edge of that valuable coastal prairie. The property in question, as you've heard, has fragile soil with rapid erosion, low stability. We understand the good effort to use pervious paving when possible, but still the houses are going to put a lot of additional storm runoff into the ground that would otherwise be retained by vegetation. And this will probably be handled by some sort of dry well or infiltration trenches, but even in that case, the water is injected into the ground and can further destabilize the ground below the site. That water could also daylight on the cliff edges and then go into the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. There is the Strand Coastal Trail that you've heard about. The problem there is that now it's on public land, but with the erosion that we're seeing continuing, in a decade or so, that trail would disappear unless it could move onto an easement in the private property. And that can't happen if houses are built all the way to the edge of the parcels in question. There are also other trails. If we have one of the pictures of the property, you'll see one cross trail from Valimar Street down to the coastal edge, and the public has prescriptive easement on that trail through continued continued long-term use of that one cross trail there, and then there's a second cross trail along the edge. So we would like the project designed in such a way that those trails could be maintained as easements as well. So in summary, the land in question here is actually zoned as open space, or is designated as open space in the county general plan. So we feel that any development that's done must be of very low density, must protect and preserve the coastal prairie environment, must preserve access to the existing coastal trails, and must not contribute significantly to erosion problems or geologic instability. This could be done by building houses on the eastern portion of the property near Valamar and further away from the coast. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next up, Gail Irwin.
Hi, I'm Gail Irwin. I live at 21 Juliana Avenue, Moss Beach, so we're right across the street from this property, and have lived there for 18 years and watched the beautiful little yellow flower, the leptoshiphon. I'm saying it wrong, aren't I, Tony? But it's indeed, it's a beautiful area, as we all agree. I'm not going to go into all of my points because they've already been very well laid out by other people. But I would point out that the sensitivity of this coastal prairie area was disrupted by 3 test wells drilled from 1998 to 2001, directly across Juliana Avenue from our home. These failed efforts left large pools of oil, an abandoned drill bit in well 2, and the abandoned 3rd well, the rusty pipe of which sticks above the property still, which is over 900 feet deep and was used by many people passing by to deposit trash until the well was finally capped a few years ago. All of this detritus would pollute the property all over again if construction of this lot takes place. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Next up, Dee Dee Histan.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Histan, and my husband Mike is ill, wasn't able to be here, but he wanted to be. I live at 200 Winky Way, and we've owned the house for 19 years, and I'm not going to take any time tonight. I just want to register that I couldn't have spoken about the points that concern us any better than Jim Lockhart and Lenny Roberts. So I appreciate all the points they meet. I concur with everything they've raised. And I just want to go on record by saying I'm super concerned about the buffer zone between houses and cliff. I guess bottom line is I think there are going to be houses here. And I'm saying, why 6? It seems to me a compromise of 3 or 4 back along Valamar. It would really satisfy a lot of the concerns here tonight and also allow the project to continue. So I hope you consider something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Jack McCarthy, you're up.
Hi, I'm Jack McCarthy. I live at 400 California Avenue in Moss Beach. I'm a neighbor as well, and I concur with the community sentiment that's come before me. You know, in general terms, if we look at that area, really, you know, we're seeing a very creative, nice project, but it's really sort of stretching the boundaries on every issue. You know, particularly, you know, coastal access is a huge issue for everyone in California, and everyone supports it. And the idea that we're pushing it really close to the bluffs are receding, this fence, we're restricting, obviously, the public's access to walk along the coast. You know, we really have to address that idea, coastal views, coastal access, habitat are all very important considerations. And, you know, I would like to, you know, agree with the issues that were brought up, that were put on the website of the MCC, citing all the LCP policies that are being impacted in terms of habitat, in terms of public access, in terms of view, public view, coastal view. And I also agreed with the letter from the Committee for the Green Foothills that said that reconfiguring and reducing the number of parcels, locating the houses along Valamar among mature cypress trees, and permanently protecting the sensitive habitats, public trail, and bluff retreat area through an enforceable restriction such as conservation easement would allow advantageous use of the property without significant adverse impacts. So, thank you. But I'm really looking forward to seeing a good compromise come out of it.
Thank you, Jack. George Maciel. Maciel? George, how do you pronounce that?
Maciel.
Maciel, thank you. George Maciel.
My name is George Maciel. I came about being involved with these lots somewhat about 15 years ago with Mr. Charnock. I attempted to purchase a couple lots from him as he was trying to do the development, which I was unable to. And at one certain point that Mr. Charnock ran out of steam, I believe he became ill, that there was an opportunity for me to buy a couple lots. I own B and G on the project, on the development there. It's always been my dream. I'm getting close to retirement age that I could retire down here. It's extremely beautiful, probably one of the most spectacular views on the coast, I'd say, in all of California. And I can understand all your concerns of all the situations that have occurred in the past. All those challenges would be just overwhelming for me to take on, is why I got involved with Owen and his team to be able to put something together that would be acceptable for the community as a whole. I'm sure all the issues that are addressed here tonight aren't all going to be solved, but I would say he's going to make a hell of a shot at resolving the majority of them if he can. Hopefully that'll happen, and I might get a shot of moving down here and living there. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Ann Forrester.
I'm Ann Forrester. I live in Moss Beach. I've been on the coast for almost 30 years. I think the bottom line here is that I won't take a whole lot of your time. I think you guys have probably figured out there really needs to be some compromise. You're going to have a really long battle. So we hope your loins are really well girded, because ours sure as heck are. I thoroughly agree with Lenny Roberts. I thoroughly agree with Jim Lockhart. I thoroughly agree with much of what has been said by everybody here. Good luck.
Thank you, Ann. Mike Shelp.
Yeah, I'm Mike Shelp again, and I live on Winky Way. And one of the things I really appreciate about the application is that when I first started is, I think when Dick was involved, we tried to deal with the homes on an individual basis. And I really appreciate the fact that you're taking that as a whole, so we can all see the impact as a whole rather than individual pieces in that. I think that's a real benefit in terms of the way it was originally presented a long time ago. In terms of what Gail had said, in terms of the activities that were there before with the wells and so forth, is very disruptive, and even to the point that they dropped a drill down in one of the holes, and they put TNT down in those holes, tried to get it out without any notice to anybody. So we were subjected to that as well. So there's a lot of issues that go with that. We really don't know what materials from the past have been brought up from the bottom on the bluff tops, and I think it'd be really important to see what's really there, because the Navy used to be there, and I don't know how many hazardous wastes are still on top of there that need to be considered. You know, having been there for so many years, I don't think any of the locals here ideally would like to see anything on there. It's been such a great community property. There have been benches on the bluff tops that was built by the community. I've personally repaired a number of them. I built the first little bridge across there just so people would have more access, and there have been weddings out there. It's just a great community asset to have, and particularly if there's fences and all that stuff, all of that goes away. And particularly with the erosion and so forth, as somebody else stated too, is every single house there takes away from the permeable soil, and all erosion comes from the top. I'm a real proponent of Lenny and what she's trying to do and the kind of proposals she's making. I mean, from my point of view, 2 houses is enough. Any more than that is really problematical from my point of view. And I would also, if there's any up there, I think it would be really important to have them come down from Valamar rather than on Juliana. And there are 2 houses that's currently specified on the upper lots that are only 20 feet from Valamar. And I think that would be problematical from a view perspective, particularly with the heights, you know, from Highway 1 and so forth. So I think that would be real problematical as well, having it that close to the road on that end. So I've really agreed with most other people out here and saying it's something that we need to consider very, very carefully, not only on the impact of the environment and that property, but also the impact on the community that's been using that property for years and years and years and years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Stephanie Sills.
Stephanie Sills from Winky Way, Moss Beach. As with my question earlier, I'm going to talk about an area that is a little bit beyond just the scope of the project. When I moved to the community 9 years ago, I used to go down to the beach below this bluff, which is the northern end of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. I would go down there every single day with my coffee and a trash bag and pick up trash off the beach and look over the fish bones, and sometimes I would find leopard sharks and seal pups and once an elephant seal, and I would see dolphins and whales, and the list goes on. And so I really see myself as, and many of my neighbors too, as a steward of this area that's so precious to us. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to come here and discuss and to meet so many neighbors, which has been really wonderful. But I just wanted to echo some of the concerns about the environment, not just to the bluff, but also to that northern end of Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, which is directly below, and which I believe is often littered with trash from the water that runs down the hill across that property and down. And my fear is that with a large-scale development that could increase, more topsoil going down the hill, more trash, more of all of this sort of entering into that part of the beach and the reserve. So just again to reiterate some of the points, concern about the trees, the raptors, and the coastal prairie, which is home to the prey for those raptors, the plants, and just thinking about the impact of this project, once again, to the value of all of our homes and all of our experience of living there. So certainly there could be a benefit of an increase in home values to the area, but I know other homes will probably suffer in value because their views will be impacted. There won't be that open space, and I just would like for the project team to be considerate of not just those parcels of land, but an area that exceeds beyond that and all of the different impacts that I raised. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephanie. Dave Shore.
Good evening. My name is Dave Shore. I'm from Half Moon Bay. And right now, Half Moon Bay, the city is going through the general plan update. And one of the topics that has sparked the most lively, shall we say, discussion down there is that of bluff top development. And this project is representative and emblematic of exactly the thing that has everybody in Half Moon Bay uniformly up in arms. This is exactly the kind of development that nobody wants to see. Prime bluff top property, great public value, great scenic value, great environmental value, and somebody wants to put some very expensive homes on it. It doesn't fly in Half Moon Bay, and it sounds like it doesn't really fly up here. I would submit that this is about money. It's a development project. If you want something to go through and you want to make some money, if you scaled it back to a level where people were not going to fight you tooth and nail for years to come, you'll make some money. Otherwise, as somebody else has referenced, you'll probably be tied up for years and years and years. Specifically, there are a couple of really, I'm new to looking at this, but again, people have mentioned building right up to the lot line is pretty, it's a pretty aggressive strategy. Building right up to the what is called the coastal erosion setback, which can only be described as a literally moving target at this point. So what happens when, I don't know what the legal mechanism of that setback alignment is, but what happens if that setback has to get moved and there's somebody's deck, hot tub, garage, or kitchen on it? I don't know. It's really, it's an aggressive development project. It would seem that you'd probably not have a lot of objection if you put 2 or 3 houses along Valamar and left the cypress tree as a visual buffer intact. Perhaps a compromise can be struck and everybody comes out of this with some homes. It's not like you can claim that you're putting in housing for seniors, disabled, or the low-income folks who are getting forced out of this area by rising rents and rising home prices. This is a development project, so if compromise is probably inevitable on this. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dave. Leonard?
I do.
Yeah. So while he's bringing that up, I'll make some other comments real quick. This proposal just makes a mockery of the whole intent of RMCZ zoning. It's resource management. It's not R1, and they're developing it as if it's R1. As far as the height limit is measured above natural grade, so they can build it up all they want, but you still have to measure from what the current grade is to the maximum height of the building. And if they were serious about the 7th parcel being in permanent open space, then part of the application would say at the completion that it will be transferred to a public entity with a deed restriction, making it permanent open space. The rest of my comments I sort of need the visuals for. Okay, so it's on the upper part there, it's the lower corner there, which is RMCZ. That's not terribly clear, so in the next map page, it's more clear that it's RMCZ, so we know that. So next slide. This is the beginning of the contract called the Joint Powers Authority Agreement that created the Sewer Authority Midcoast site, otherwise known as SAM, the treatment plant that's in Half Moon Bay, but all of the coastside agencies send their wastewater to. Notice that it's dated February 3rd, 1976. And if you take a quick look at paragraph D, just for comparison purposes, this paragraph D is not terribly relevant. The next one is. So notice that 4 months later, in June of 1976, it's the First Amendment to the JPA agreement. Next slide. And what happened here? The Coastal Commission forced them, and this is in the permit, but I was unable to locate the permit in time for this meeting. The Coastal Commission forced them to add the language that unfortunately slops over onto the next page, so it's below the heavy bar there. The service area boundaries are defined as the current corporate city limits of the city and all lands within the districts not zoned RM. This land is not eligible for sewer service. It is a violation of the coastal permit that allowed the SAM plant to be built. It is a violation of the Joint Powers Agency Agreement for Montera District to provide sewer service there. You cannot legally get sewer service. And did I have any more slides, or was that the end of it?
Nope, that was the end of it.
Okay, so that's the end of my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Leonard. Susan McCallick Case.
Hello, I'm Susan McCallick Case, and we have a 1913 one-story old house on Stetson, and we are directly straight shot to Juliana. And my point is that you can't stop progress, and so you hope that it's done in a fair way for everyone. And my big concern is someone in my neighborhood put up solar panels that are right in my line of view, even though I have a view easement. And my sunsets are a little bit like a mirror. And so and also color. So my concern is when the houses, if they get built, where would the solar panels be if you're going green, or if you're, I would assume you're being very careful about solar panels and runoff water and all those sorts of things. So if there were solar panels, is it possible they could go on the ocean side, facing the ocean, so that they don't impact everybody on the east side of the highway? So we're looking at mirrors instead of the sunset. That's it.
Thank you, Susan.
Excuse me.
Carl May.
I'm going to talk to a general issue that many people have talked to already, which involves bluff erosion and so forth, and and then bring it down to a specific site with the red property line shows it best.
This one might be even better, Carl. This is the one from the geologist report.
I like this. I'd like
like
to see
the
the
other
picture,
one?
the
All
aerial
right,
photo.
you got it.
The way bluff erosion happens all up and down this part of the California coast, and indeed most of the parts of the West Coast, is that, yes, there's some runoff from the surface. There's some annual bit of erosion off of any bare surfaces, unvegetated surfaces. But most of the big chunks of bluff, the chunks of bluff that all of a sudden people who had 75 feet of bluff top and back of their house in Pacifica had houses going over the edge a few years ago. I made some money taking pictures of that. It goes all at once. This is not a gradual thing. When you see an average retreat of the bluff, that's not how it happens. And what it happens at those times when big chunks go off is all the soft bluff material becomes saturated. And this is why it's during the biggest, most extended storm periods that you get your big chunks of bluff disappearing on you. And it's otherwise you don't really see anything very dramatic. This property has a bit of a benefit in this regard, in that there's a rocky substrate all along the edge of it. And during regular years and during normal tides, even with storms, most of the storm energy is dissipated on that rocky area. So it's actually like what we were trying to get as a buttress on Devil's Slide. It buttresses the soft bluff material, and you don't get a whole lot of bluff erosion during regular storm events. It's going to be quite a year possibly this year, and just within the last day or two, the probability of the storms coming up from Southern California has been increased in the forecast, and we could really get blasted. If you have saturated soils on those bluffs, the bluff material is thoroughly saturated, and you get one of these storms on top of a king tide, as we may well have, probably not in December, but possibly in January, you have an opportunity for this kind of chunk of bluff to go out on you. And in here, I would guess you could easily lose 10, 15 feet if this all comes together. Sorry to extend this, but let me point to one area.
Which one do you want?
The one with the red lines. Red property.
Zoom back yet.
Okay, with Lot B and Lot C, you can see that the existing coastal trail is really squeezed right there. And if there's a fence there, you know, we might be going along the edge clinging to the fence. The other thing that's happening right at that spot, just about where Lot C and Lot B come together, is where this rare phlox, or Leptothyphon, is that the genus? And it's no longer 2 acres out there. It's a little tiny patch of this stuff, and in some years, darn few plants, although it manages to go along. It's right at that squeeze point where there's already been some erosion. You have an opportunity for this no place else in the world plant to disappear on you all of a sudden. Also, you might think, oh, well, they could put up some sort of wall or something like that and run the coastal trail across a structure like this. You'd also be destroying this rare plants place if you did that. So right there, not only would we have a good potential with a saturated bluff of losing the trail, but we're also losing one of our rare features of our local communities. That's just, I'm sorry for taking so much time, but that's just one example of the kinds of things that can converge to create a problem here. Any additional saturation of the bluff top material will make the situation I've just described worse. If there is more money more water coming off the I know money comes off hardscaping. I know money comes off hardscaping, but if there's any additional water coming off the hardscaping to add to the saturation of the bluff top, we've got an extra problem.
Thank you, Carl. And I have one last speaker. Bill, come on up. Barbara?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Barbara Cossey, Moss Beach. I've been walking that trail for about 18 years, and I've noticed sort of continual degradation of the trail. The Monterey cypress are moving in and taking over the prairie. The erosion is happening. People are trampling it. Maybe we could do some kind of compromise, like you get to build 2 houses, but set up some kind of remediation thing for that beautiful prairie, and something that'll maybe set up some kind of a fund so that we can save that rare plant. And, you know, maybe that's a real win-win, as a way to really conserve that special place, and, you know, in exchange for letting a couple of really special people live in some really special homes. So, just an idea. Thanks.
Yep. Bill Kehoe.
Hi again, Bill Kehoe, still in Moss Beach. I want to agree with just about everybody who went before me. Some are more eloquent than I could be. I didn't hear anyone mention, I'm sure it's in the document someplace I haven't seen yet, about the runoff from the development and affecting the marine area, significant biological impact, whatever it's called. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, ASBS, that's right. Those are the initials I was trying to think of. The other piece, I had talked to someone else before Leonard brought this up, and I'm glad he brought it up because he is on SAM, so he's much more aware of that law that says you're not supposed to deliver sewer services there. If that's the case, then I don't see how any building can go on there, because they're going to have to go to some kind of septic tank, which needs a leach field, which is on a bluff, which is, where does this go wrong, right?
Could you speak a little louder? We're having trouble hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So,
Repeat that last sentence.
oh, okay, so I'm glad Leonard, who's on SAM, brought up the fact that they can't have a sewer service there because of the law that brought the JPA of SAM into effect. And if they can't have sewer service, then the only thing they could do is some kind of septic tank leach field, but trying to put a septic tank leach field in that area, well, if the county okayed it, the county would probably be liable for the disaster that happens afterwards. So I think that's really important, that it was zoned resource management, and now, as he pointed out, we're trying to make it residential 1. And that, to me, is a rezoning, and that shouldn't be happening, especially with what Tony pointed out, and I think Barbara did, about the significance of the wildflowers, the prairie thing. You know, we don't have any more of it. So I just, you know, I wish there was a compromise, but you're probably stepping on the last little piece of open space that has a unique flavor to it, and I think I would not go along with a compromise of any kind. That's what I want to say.
Thank you, Bill. Gary Naiman.
I'm Gary Naiman, and I live on Valamar Street. And I don't want to be argumentative, but I counted the number of 2-story and 1-story houses along the street, and there are 11 2 stories and 4 1-story houses. But that's not my point. My point is that everybody here is passionate about saving the bluffs, because the bluffs are really something special. We've been in our home for 19 years, and watched the raptors and the owls and the hawks that sit in the trees. It's just amazing. Our home used to have, until the wind blew two of them over, we had two trees that went up like that, and was over our roof. And watching those raptors every single morning while we were having breakfast was a delight. On the map, people have talked about the pinch point of where the erosion is, and before we bought our home, it just happened that I was doing some work on my property in San Leandro and had to have a geologist, and I asked him to come out and talk to me and overlook the property before I bought my property. And he said basically, you know, Gary, where you are, I would have no problem. Our house has a big rock out in front that fishermen generally fish off of. But he said, you can see the cracks in the bluff trail. And I don't know how you're going to mitigate that. I honestly don't. I'm not trying to, you know, I don't want to throw a wet blanket on this, because I'm sure, you know, when we got the notice that that homes were going to be built there, we were disappointed. I can't say that we were against it, because you have the right, you own the property, you have the right to build on it. But we were certainly disappointed that something was going to go in there and change the character and the flavor of our, I mean, I'm talking collectively here, all of our area. It's what we have become accustomed to, and we all know that change occurs, but you know, personally, I would not like to see anything change, but I know that something's going to go there. And I just hope that you take into consideration the special nature of what it is that's there, and try to mitigate your designs and your plans around that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Chris, did you have a comment?
Can I keep it 1 second? Hi, my name is Chris Lang, and I live on California in Moss Beach. I'm also the Moss Beach rep for the Design Review Committee, but I'm here speaking tonight as a resident of Moss Beach. I agree with and support Lenny Roberts' suggestions 110%. Thank you so much, Lenny. And I would like to see the project reduced in the number of homes and it moved up to Valmar. I'd also like you to consider the design review standards, which dissuade 3-story structures along the coast side, and to pay attention to ways to mitigate dark sky impacts. I see that some of the projects have beautiful walls of glass, which pose a threat to birds and could potentially impact our much beloved dark skies. So that was it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
Is there anybody else that would like to make a public comment at this time? Okay, usually we have count.
We have one person in the battle.
There we go. Come on up, sir.
My name is John Zukowski. I live in Moss Beach also. I go down to the bluffs several times a week, sometimes at least once a day. And when I went by and I saw a sign indicating that this property development was going to be considered, my heart sank. This is one of the most beautiful, wonderful pieces of the coastside, and it's really easily accessible to people. I had assumed that this area was a public land. I thought it was part of the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. So it's just an emotional reaction that I have to seeing this possible property put up. So I will hope that this can be, reduced, that it can be held back, and, my best hope would be that it be terminated, but if that can't be done, that it be restricted as much as possible. Everybody else has come up here with really logical explanations about habitat, about the animals, about the foliage and everything. My reaction is, just as a resident of Moss Beach, that I would really hate to see this beautiful piece of land removed from public access. Which is the way I see it. And I hope that can happen. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is anybody else? Ann?
Ann Forrester, one additional question. Given all of these comments, have you at all considered or talked to an open space organization, Post, land trusts, any organization like that?
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, council, we're going to have a letter with our comments that we're going to discuss later. Does anybody on the council want to make a comment right now? We'll start at that end. Aaron?
Hello, and I apologize for running late. I'm sorry. I have two questions, and then I want to make a comment. So my first question is, so the gentleman that spoke earlier, he was explaining that he owns lots B and G. Am I correct in that? Okay, B and G? Okay. So the remaining lots then, which would be A, C, D, E, and F, when were those purchased? I'm assuming by you.
No, we're under contract with all the parcels.
Oh, okay. So it's a conglomeration of different owners then? Okay, thanks. And is it a matter of public record what those individuals paid for the raw land? Ostensibly, yes?
I don't know.
Okay. So the two comments I wanted to make are, the first is, in 2 years on this council, I literally have never seen so many people show up for an issue. I mean, this is hugely impactful, and people are very emotionally engaged in this issue. I'm just going to kind of lay that out there. The second thing is that I can tell you that I've only lived here for 4 years. I mean, there are people who have lived here for 40. But I will tell you, and I'm going to try not to get choked up, that this area calls to people. Once you've bought a home here and it becomes part of your heart, you literally do not want to see the reasons that it called to you disappear. And that's just what I want to say. So thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Dave?
Yeah, two things. I think in addition to the RMCZ setback, the LCP requires a setback of 25 feet from the trail. I don't know if that considers the trail moving with time or not, but I think that would have to move some of the houses further back. The other thing is, geologically, all through that section of the coast, there's a layer of very unconsolidated rock, almost mud. When you walk the bluff line, you see water seeping out all over the place at that level. It's a very distinct line. If water is contained on the property and it soaks into the ground at a higher rate than it would have run off, you will supersaturate that layer and accelerate the erosion. I'd be very concerned about that issue.
Is there anybody else on the?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, I moved here 27 years ago in El Granada. I did have an ocean view, and so finding places like these are very important to me to go and enjoy. And I, like others, cherish the spot.
Thanks, Dan. Claire?
I just wanted to add, I forget who it was who brought up some comments about the community itself, the people, the diversity of the houses, all that kind of thing. I think that's important. That's one of the things that really speaks to me, is that right now that whole neighborhood it's as diverse as you can get around here. There's people that are very wealthy, there are people that are not very wealthy, there are houses that are really very modest, there are houses that are, very unmodest. And I would really like to, everybody kind of gets along, everybody has a live and let live attitude. And I would really hate to see this become more of a proscribed, wealthy community. I really don't think that would do justice to the people that are already here.
Thank you, Claire. Lisa or Laura?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I will go into my comments in detail. This pre-application workshop is a set county thing, and we're going to end this item, but immediately following this, I have a presentation to show that I can move through fairly quickly. Pictures, the subject is armoring the coast for development, and it's focused specifically on Montero, Moss Beach, and just and ends up with the actual, people have asked, what would happen with if erosion threatened these houses, and this slide presentation has the wording that the Coastal Commission now on appeal is putting on new development, prohibiting armoring and deed restricted. So that is coming, and then following that, the council will consider our draft comments, which have been posted online and they're out there on the table. I'm not going to reiterate those, but I think it goes in and I don't know if you're welcome to hang around, but the meeting's on video, and so even if this runs too long and you can't stay, that's just saying those comments are potentially coming.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. The next two items on the agenda are very closely related to this, if not directly related, are the MCC proposed letter. So, excuse me, if this is a topic that interests you, as I know it does, I highly recommend that you stick around, including the project team. I mean, this could be very valuable information for you. Thanks for bringing that up, Lisa. The one is, Laura, would you like to make a comment?
Just a heartfelt thank you to everybody who showed up and took your time to come out here tonight, and especially to comment. I think it's so important, and that's all.
Thank you. I would like to reiterate Laura's comments. Thank you all for coming out, and also, I really appreciate the respectful way we've had the discussion here tonight. I know that this can get emotional, right?
Sorry.
For both sides, but really, this is how I think things move forward to an amicable solution. My only comment on this is from the Coastal Armoring report that is part of Lisa's project. On page 43, it states that the Coastal Act states that development should not be located where it will have, quote, significant adverse effects, either individually or cumulatively on coastal resources. And I think the cumulatively word there is particularly important. Of course, there's already stuff developed up and down the coast, but the cumulative effect is we're left with a very small patch of coastal prairie. That's not the project's team's fault, but that is the point of where we are right now. The erosion that has occurred thus far and will occur into the future with sea level rise and just natural wave action, that's a cumulative effect. It doesn't start with this project. It's been going on, but it is a cumulative effect. The building on the entire 2.37 acres with 6 structures, that each individual structure may be very beautiful and very nice, but 6 structures is a cumulative effect. So my concern is the cumulative effect of all of these points I've just mentioned in building on this site. That's just something to consider as we look at this site. It's accumulation of a lot of different factors that aren't necessarily specific to this project, but this project is now there and it has to absorb that cumulative history. Okay. Dave, would you like to have any kind of wrap-up comment on this? How will people, once again, could you reiterate how people can get your write-up of this meeting?
Right, so there's a list outside that I put there on a clipboard. Please, your name, if you prefer it by mail, I will drop copies of the letter that we'll produce probably in about the next week and a half summarizing tonight's comments. I'm not going to be mentioning names for everybody who spoke, but I'm going to be mentioning all topics, and a lot of you centered on a lot of the same topics, so that'll be reflected. add your email. I'm happy to save the paper and send this to, you know, as many people who provide the email. And then at that point, I'm available for anybody who's wondering, so what was the applicant's next step? Because I don't know what their next step is. What typically occurs is there is an application, there's a changed application, there is exactly the same application. I don't know. Believe me, over the years, we've seen it go all sorts of different ways. But within any amount of time, any of you are free to email me. I can give you an update. It might be I don't know anything yet, but please feel free to call or email. I'm good about getting back to those, and we'll keep you all informed as this process moves along. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave, for coming tonight and for county organizing this pre-application. Also, thank you to the applicants for attending and participating. Really beneficial to all parties, I believe.
I just wanted to say also that that document will wind up on the Valamar Bluff section of the MCC website. So if you don't want to receive it by email, you can go look there on the website.
It will be there as well, yeah.
Okay, that concludes item B of our regular agenda, and now we're going to go to item C, historical overview of coastal armoring to protect development in the Midcoast. Lisa Ketchum.
And for anybody who's leaving, as Carl May said, we're looking at 20 to 25-foot swells coming in over the next 2 days.
Wow.
Watch it if you're anywhere near the bluffs.
And please sign the MCC sign-in sheet also if you have not done that already.
Do we want to wait for people to
So do you want to wait?
file out? Yes.
Steve, I think you can turn it off for a moment.
We're going to take a 5-minute pause while everybody. Lisa Ketchum, item 4C. Lisa.
Okay, so shoreline armoring in our neighborhood. Come on. Okay, so let's start in the north. So Montero Beach. So in 1979, the picture at the top, newly constructed restaurant. It used to be an old motel, but it was totally rebuilt, but on the same footprint. They didn't think to move it back. Within 4 years later, bottom picture, it's all armored. 460 feet on the public beach. So here's in the El Nino storms in 80. Look at that picture. Look at the restaurant. You know the place. It's,
Good timing. Isn't that a spooky picture?
So this is, this was brought up in the comment about, these historical averages can be misleading. This stuff happens in seemingly unexpected events during winter storms, and the reaction over time has been this piecemeal emergency armoring to protect the development without regard to issues that we now know should be concerned. Changes coastal dynamics, and okay. So there's the natural cliff face at Montero State Beach, and the whole view shed there up to the top of the mountain, preserved open space is just beautiful, except for these rocks there for the restaurant. And so this is done now. It's over 30 years old, and so they were given the emergency permits, and they put them in. There's no thought for what's going to happen when it starts falling apart, which it does. And you can see, I don't know if you can see in the shadow how it's undermined. And anytime you see rocks down on the beach, they didn't grow there. They fell down from the wall. And I guess that's it. Okay, so then moving down the coast, now Reed Point Road and Arbor Lane area is just immediately south of the Valamar Bluff. Now this 72 image shows that the Reed Point Road area was developed before the coast lag way back. That whole section there on the left is fully armored and happened in the 60s or earlier. But over the years, there's permit records where they've had to do extensive repairs of that armoring, not cheap. And then the Arbor Lane on the right, the upper picture was not yet developed, but in 72, it was a merger and re-subdivision, not a lot line adjustment, and they came out with scenic easement on the shoreline, and they developed that. So and now you can see today that even though they had that scenic easement and they just built that in 72, already half of it's fully armored to protect that house. And this is the view of that section looking from the Marine Reserve beach access ramp, looking north. Okay, next section. This is just south of what we just looked at. Sunshine Valley, you see the red arrow up there at the top, down to the beach access ramp at the reserve. Prior to 1983, when you went down that access ramp to the beach, you could walk north and south, and there was beach and natural cliff face. It was all there. And now look at it. So in the 80s, the first armoring was that house there by the ramp, and then 2 other houses. So 3 houses, rocks all over the beach, access gone. You know, when you read the county approvals, it says right in there and say, oh, this will be good because it's not going to affect lateral beach access, but actually it did. So as you stand there at FMR looking north from the beach access, at high tide, it's totally blocked and the view is marred by all these rocks and everything else. At low tide, it's still very difficult to go north because these riprap, you know, already the riprap is falling all over the beach, and so you have to work your way through it. It's not just a sandy beach anymore. And you know, when this was brought up, the armoring immediately next to the beach ramp, it was pointed out a couple of years ago that it was a hazard because these boulders were just perched precariously overhead, and we pointed it out to county parks, and so they put up that sign that says unstable rocks on the cliff. As far as I can tell, there doesn't seem any provision to require the people to fix their failing armoring, but anyway, there it is. And here's this historic house, that red house that was up there. In 2002, there was some erosion there, and all of a sudden they're all worried. And instead of armoring it, they moved the house back. See the red arrow? It shows where they moved that house. And so that section is still unarmored. There's a further story about that house, but it's a different chapter. Let me just say it now. So the house was moved there, but it's been it's totally unrecognizable now. It's completely rebuilt into this whole huge, very big house. And when they got the permit to do the very big house, it was appealed to the Coastal Commission. The Coastal Commission said, okay, but thou shalt not ever armor that cliff. And we'll talk about that later, the wording of that. Now down here at Seal Cove, Ocean Boulevard, this is, you know, just north of Pillar Point Bluff, County Park. So you can see in 1979, there's 4 houses along that, and they're not there now. And I'm pretty sure they were all demolished and taken away. They did not fall on the beach.
Although their foundations have.
Yeah. And Princeton. So, you know, Bluff's not as high here. You have a lot of instances of just illegal, you know, no permits. The people just armor their properties. And the upper picture, you can see this severely affects walking along the beach. You know, it has to be a really low tide to even get past it now. It has no permit in front of Romeo Packing. And then the bottom picture is an unpermitted seawall in the mid-block in Princeton. You can see how it's all undermined because this is the effect. When you armor, it increases erosion. It takes away the beach, and it just makes everything worse. Down at Columbia, so the bottom picture there, that's once again, the result of armoring. It hasn't been maintained. It's rocks all over the beach. So even though there's still sandy beach there, it's like, what can you do? You know, launch a kayak or whatever. You know, there's rocks in the way. And then the upper picture shows the effect of, you know, piecemeal armoring, where basically the property that's armored then ends up on a peninsula because it accelerates erosion next to it. So the county has been permitting these projects right on the shoreline. These quote-unquote warehouses were permitted, and they got their CDP in the late 90s, 7 of them actually, all at once. And although and so the upper picture you can see, they haven't even finished building them. You can see there's no armoring in front of those, but before they've even finished, the bottom picture shows the sandbag arrangement that they had to put in there. Then the right-hand picture, the right-hand building was approved by the county just a couple of years later, but the difference is it was appealed to the Coastal Commission. And even though they allowed the house to be built there, they have this deed-restricted prohibition on no future armoring. So this is what you'll get. And as far as my research shows, we've got that one at 101 Vassar, there's the house on Nevada in Moss Beach, and then there's 2 new approved buildings in Princeton that haven't been built yet in the 300 block. And they have this is just a condensation of what it says, but basically the property owner assumes risk, responsibility, waiver of liability, indemnity agreement regarding all these coastal hazards. Shoreline armoring is prohibited now and in the future. If the development is threatened by coastal hazards that would normally bring an armoring response, they shall remove their development. And if any of it falls into the beach, they need to clean it up. And then there is a recorded deed restriction imposing these conditions on future owners. And so this is what I've seen in any projects that have been appealed to the Coastal Commission. This is what they can expect. So the tie-in here, what made me think to do this presentation, not that we're going to address all these issues here tonight, but it's things to think about, and then the presentation will be on our website. But so here we have this project we're looking at, and you see these beautiful bluffs and this, basically this area we talked about, the coastal prairie, but this section of coastline, the wave action there, it's so spectacular, and the fact that it's accessible to people in wheelchairs even, and what's so glorious about it, if you were, you just can't armor that. The only way to protect this is to let it have room to retreat. And as a retreat, it will remain glorious, but it needs plenty of room to retreat. So that's my presentation, and like I say, it is running late. If anyone had specific questions.
Okay. Sorry, just one. Does the council have any clarifying questions for Lisa? Questions from the public. Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara Cossey, Moss Beach. I have 2 questions. One, is there any move to remove the illegal armoring? And 2, when armoring falls onto a beach and mars a beach, does the property owner have any responsibility to remove that rock from the public beach?
Am I supposed to answer that? Yeah. Somebody has to make them do it, obviously, and that's got to be some agency, some government agency. And clearly, I forgot to mention that on those slides. There hadn't been any government enforcement, state or county, on the illegal riprap in Princeton, or well, there was one thing when the Coastal Commission had to remove some rocks in front of in the 300 block, which they did, and then people from the other end of the street came down and got a bunch of those rocks and put them in front of their place. So, I mean, it's just, this topic, I just brought this up now, this is a topic for a future meeting, like, what's to be done about the deteriorating riprap and all. We're not going to settle that tonight.
But complaints have been made to the county about the illegal riprap in some locations, and it remains undealt with.
Leonard?
Not questions, but comments. Really good presentation, Lisa. And because this is an audience that in large part hasn't heard me say this before, Ken LaJoy, who worked for USGS, retired some years back, but he spent 30 years at USGS studying coastal erosion in San Mateo County. He gave a presentation sponsored by the MCC over at the school, I think in '99, which I have a recording of. And one of the things he said there is he said riprap always fails. And unless you armor 1,100 miles of the California coastline, which is where we're headed if we don't just say no to this, it fails at the ends because the wave action comes in on the sides and undermines it, and the ends just keep deteriorating. And so each property owner next to the armoring wants to armor their property. And so that's why no armoring should ever be allowed. And there is precedent for the county ordering illegal armoring to be removed. The bed and breakfast that was built in a place that never should have been built on at all, on Murata Road at Medio Creek, the developer wanted to put in riprap. When he built it, he was told, no, you can never put in riprap. He built it anyway, and then a couple of years later, illegally riprapped the banks of Medio Creek. The county ordered him to take it out at his expense. It cost him a ton of money. So there is precedent, but the county is just loath to enforce any environmental regulations except on the small guy.
Oh, also, there's one other instance where.
Lenny, yes.
Yeah, there's one other instance where it's been removed, and that was in Half Moon Bay at the hotel. At the hotel. Well, it was voluntary, knowing it was going to be imposed, but yes, the owners of the golf course voluntarily removed illegal riprap that had been put on the bluffs to protect the golf course in front of the Ritz-Carlton. But they knew they were going to have to do it, but they jumped out and did the right thing, which is to their credit. So it's gone, and that bluff is going to continue to erode, and you can see, if you look at the California Coastal Records pictures, or I think you can also see it from the bluffs, but the emerging foundations of the hotel the foundations were put in 1972 to avoid, in order to vest the right to build the hotel. They put it close to the bluffs, and where they put those foundations are now emerging like a sunken cathedral from the bluffs.
Right.
So those, I don't know what'll happen eventually, but those will collapse, those old concrete piers that are harder than the surrounding soil. I don't think there's a beach below it.
And while the next person's coming up, Lisa put the California Coastal Armoring Report 2015 up on the front page of the MCC website, and it makes the same point and cites the studies that Leonard made about causing erosion further down. It was also acknowledged during the Surfers Beach emergency repair discussions that was going to make Murata West erode faster.
Could I just add to that? Basically, the permit, the work that's going on at Surfers Beach now, the Coastal Commission, that permit is a temporary armoring for 10 years while they give the Caltrans some time to figure out what they're going to do about the island.
Stephanie?
Lisa, that was a great presentation. Thank you. I'm so glad that I stayed. Another random thought came to me after sitting here and looking at all this information that the project team may or may not have considered yet, and that is seismic activity. I know that there are fault lines in the Seal Cove area of Moss Beach, and I've also looked at the maps of fault lines underwater, and there are quite a few in this area. It has often kept me awake late at night when I've felt tremors and then worried about my 5-year-old twins sleeping on the ground floor of our house. Could we get out in time? What kind of tsunami might hit this area? I don't know if that's anything you've considered looking at, but for a future meeting.
Thank you. Does anybody else? Carl, yes.
Lest anybody get too complacent about the power of logic and good government to take care of these things, I'd like to point out that within the last couple of years, down in La Jolla on a beach, and this was fought heavily by the Surfrider folks, but an eroding bluff in La Jolla that did not have any kind of right to have armoring put at its base got to where it was threatening some very expensive homes at the bluff top, again with million-dollar views and so forth, and the Coastal Commission caved on it and let them put in the armoring. So you can almost, although this is a very different situation, the bluff isn't as high here, you get some expensive homes in there with people who have a little influence in the right places and so forth, and you can see with incidents like La Jolla, you can see somebody pushing for some armoring or cementing the bluffs or something here.
It's would anybody else like to make a comment on this item on the agenda? Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. That was very informative. Okay, we're now going to move on to item D, which is consideration of MCC comments on the proposed development of 6 houses on Valamar Bluff. So we've had a item in between, but this is an MCC comment letter on this development project. Lisa, do you want to summarize?
All right, so I just wanted to see the slide before we consider the letter. So this has been posted on the website this weekend. There's copies out there. I basically, the council doesn't have staff, so somebody's got to do the research and kind of do a staff report or maybe a draft letter or something like that. So this is what I've produced, and basically, as you can see on the page, the Valamar Bluff page, compiled documents from the historical projects and whatever I could find about all this. And with Lenny Roberts, we had 2 meetings with the neighbors, and we talked about these things. And so basically, drawing from all that and what I expected to hear tonight, I came up with this draft. This is not comprehensive. It just hit the key issues, basically. Protect the sensitive habitats, the coastal prairie, require an adequate setback, prohibit future armoring, make sure that coastal trail is maintained through a provision of floating easement, and avoid the concerns about water quality, the bluff stability, and from runoff and all, and then ensure, basically this is about views, this last item. Then, we do cover this issue of the parcel legality because it's sort of the elephant in the room here, and whether there's legal recourse or at this stage or later, I don't know, but optimally in what we have here in the 3rd paragraph, if voluntarily these owners could reconfigure or reduce the number of parcels, then that would be a way to address these issues. And I don't really see how they can be addressed short of doing that, but that's the gist of our letter.
Great. Does anybody on the council have any clarifying questions that they would like to bring up with regard to this letter?
Could I make a comment?
Sure.
Lisa, I just want to thank you for the incredible amount of work that you put into this. I would not even want to add up the hours. And just many thank yous.
Ditto. Does anybody from the public want to make a comment on this letter? Okay. All right. Anybody else on the council care to comment? Erin, yes.
I actually would like to comment. I just wrote this down because I thought that there was a sentence that you had included on one of your slides that I actually would like to see incorporated into the letter. And so if I can read that just real quickly. The only way to save this beautiful shoreline is to give it plenty of space and allow it to retreat naturally. I think that that's really eloquently put, and I would really like to see that added to this letter.
It's going to make it go to 2 pages.
Well, can we cut something in?
You can leave footnotes off.
Here's the font fit design.
Yeah,
Yes.
if Leonard isn't
Reduce it
listening,
to
we'll just
11.
reduce the font size to.
I mean, I think it kind of says it all, so.
It's an excellent point, Erin. It's a beautiful line.
I like the sentiment, but I'm not sure I could vote for it myself. But
Yeah, I think I'm glad you like the sentiment, and, it stays there in the slides. I just think that this letter, as you write this, and as I started it with the key issues, the bullet list, it was more emotional what I had written there, and then when Lenny looks it over, she says, well, put in the policy number, and it's like, I realize this makes it more boring, but this is going to the planner. And this is what they work off of. They have to follow these policies, and whether the sentence is emotionally satisfying or not is kind of irrelevant in this, for where this letter's going.
I might argue, though, that based on what people said here tonight, I mean, if we're supposed to be the voice of the community, I think it's important to include some emotional statements. And so I'm not saying that what you have here isn't relevant, but by the same token, for a planner sitting in his office or her office looking this over, I also think it's important to include clearly the emotional investment that the community has in this issue. So.
Okay.
When you take out the giant word draft, I'm just space for 2 more lines.
No, I put the letterhead in. I couldn't do the letterhead yet because it's really dollars. No, I think that you know, I'm sorry I'm not quick on my feet with this kind of thing, editing in a meeting, and basically, there is, I just spent a lot of time on letter. So I mean, there is some thought in this last paragraph. The first sentence is long, and it summarizes all the points for a compromise, which include more than just the erosion issue. So I'm not really sure how this would affect that. And basically, you know, I did want to stress, I'm not the only one left on the group, that that the compromises that we're proposing would be good for everybody. I think it would be good for whoever lives in whatever house is built. They're not going to have any of the other houses blocking their view. They're more protected, that further back from the shore. They will have use of this for their own park too. It's like borrowings. I mean, you know what I mean. I think it would be better for everybody to take this approach. So that was my point. It's an appeal to the applicant to hear that.
Yeah, and the part I have problems with, Aaron, aside from the emotion, which I don't have a real problem with, is the only way, because the rest of this is comments. That's sort of a prescriptive statement that I don't know that the facts support.
Okay. Dan, do you have any comments on this? Okay. Laura? Oh, you already made a comment. Do you have any additional comments?
No, I don't have any more.
Claire?
No.
Okay. It does not appear that there's enough support to, oh, wait, Bill Kehoe. The closer.
I'm sorry, I really want you to get through this quick.
It's all right.
First of all, Lisa, great job as always. But there's no mention of the fact that there will be no sewer service. And I think that is really important. I don't know if it's something the MCC has to do, or it's just, you got to wait until Sam has to respond. I don't know what the process procedure is, but it seems to me if you're planning to build and you don't have sewer service on the bluff, it's like I'm just at a loss of words. I don't know how it can be done. So it's just a planner realize that that's in the JPA, that the county has to be held to.
Good point, Bill.
Significant
May
information.
I respond?
Yeah, one sec, Carl. Lisa.
I think that issue should be left to the sewer authority and the sanitary districts. And like I say, the letter is not comprehensive. It's one person did it, and and if we were to have the perfect polished letter, it ain't gonna happen this fast.
I don't want to keep them on, but thank you.
When the application goes in, a copy goes to Montero Water and Sanitary and to Sam, and that will be their chance to say yes or no.
I'll make sure to make a public comment.
Carl?
Getting to Aaron's comment here, sometimes a more subjective kind of statement like that doesn't really fit with inside of policy 216A can be made. You're an advisory committee to the county and advising them on our community's beliefs about things. So you could sometimes maybe think about a bulleted point saying it is the gist or something like that of community sentence as evidenced at public meeting at such and such a time, that, and then stick in her comment. Something along that line.
These comments from this evening are going to be compiled by Dave Holbrook in an anonymous sort of subject heading kind of a thing, and so that's irrelevant to these kind of details in this letter. I mean, he's going to be looking for the issues here, and hopefully including that in the letter.
But he's under no obligation to convey any of the emotional tone
No,
of
he
his
won't.
comments.
He won't.
He won't. If there was some way to put in here that this is our sense of the community's sense, is that this is a very important topic to the community. I mean, I'm not saying it right, but just some expression of the importance socially and emotionally of this topic to the community.
Yeah. How about a sentence to the effect that the council has heard a very strong expression of community sentiment that this is an important and precious open space area?
I like that.
How about if I just attach the last slide to the letter?
Well, here's what I think. We could,
No, I'm not kidding.
No, I know.
Last slide. Which last
The
slide?
last
sorry?
slide is the one where the quote come from that Aaron liked. It shows a picture of Almar Bluff, and it says, "The only way to save this beautiful shoreline is to give it plenty of space and allow it to retreat naturally." We can just attach that to the letter.
There you go.
Does that work?
So-
All right.
If you leave out the word only, I'll be happy, but you guys can override me.
Wait.
what's the only?
The only way to save this beautiful, nobody's name.
Yeah.
Like I said, you guys can override me.
Yeah, I mean, Dave makes a good point. Only is a strong word. It may not be the only, although we may or may not agree with it. It is a strong
There's just a
word.
picture attached to the
I
letter.
understand.
If you say the community feels, I think it's a true statement and conveys even stronger.
Would anybody like to make a motion on this letter?
So before we make the motion, does anybody, I think the sense of the council was, we'd like to amend it, that sentence, we should come up with that wording before we vote.
I thought what the suggestion I made about attaching in a picture.
Does the rest of the council believe
Yes.
that's the right thing to do? Okay, then I'll make a motion that we approve this letter as drafted with the addition of the sentence from Lisa's last
No, I
letter.
didn't say add the sentence. I want to attach the slide with the sentence as an attachment to the letter.
Is that what the rest of the council wants?
That's what I meant.
No, it is not. And I'll, from having been on the council a couple of times, in my opinion, I believe Lisa explained it pretty well in terms of the planner was here and heard the sentiment. He will have that already documented, and this is a separate document pointing out to specifics, and I don't see how it's going to impact that. And I think that it should go as it stands. And I think it would be kind of silly to be included, I mean, you're trying to address everybody's issues, but attaching a slide and what have you, I believe that the way it stands, as one page, as bulleted, it's conveying information. It's not intended to convey sentiment.
But sentiment is part of the information that we want to convey, I think.
I'm gonna.
Coming from another place. Well, we how shall I say, we hosted the
Right,
public
or
forum.
I think people are trying to say the council has seen a strong expression of community sentiment. And since Dave Holbrook is just going to summarize the points, we want the council's comments to reflect a very strong community feeling. And I think that's what Carl is saying. I think Aaron and Claire are saying that. And I do agree with that sentiment.
It would be good if it could be included, documented in our document.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? I started this off, first I had to make some convincing to get this item on the agenda to
Right.
have us approve a letter tonight. And I was convinced it was timely and should be done. And after some pushback, I was allowed to do that. And it's a challenge because we haven't had the meeting yet, and so yet I had to draft a letter. And making this really hard for me. I just, and I had the opportunity to confer with 2 council members and get their buy-in, so there's that. And if I'm then told that, no, now it needs to be amended, when there's already been an opportunity to amend it, it's very frustrating to me. And, maybe it's not appropriate for me to say that, but there it is.
But it's been pointed out many times, and I'm sorry, Chris. 'cause
No, it's all right.
I keep
Go.
talking like I'm the
I
chair.
appreciate this
So,
discussion.
As one of the people who was a little concerned about putting out a letter right after hearing the pre-app comments, it's been pointed out many times that a draft letter can be amended at the meeting. And I think this is one case where there's a pretty strong reason to amend it. And I don't think we're weakening the letter. I think we're strengthening it by adding that. I would prefer, rather than attaching a slide, to just add a sentence. But, even though you are the one drafting it, it's the whole council sending it, or voting to send it. So I think it's a pretty strong sense of the council that we want to convey that community sentiment.
So you want an emotional sentence in here somewhere. Now, I'm thinking the place to put it might be
Not
the
necessarily
first
an
paragraph.
emotional sense, a sense that conveys the emotion of the audience.
That's what I meant. So, because we're up here, we're saying, the MCC and the community were deeply involved in prior development proposals, and we have collected da-da-da-da-da, maybe you could add that at the meeting, we heard, comments from X number of people about, I don't know, it's late, I just,
Okay, can I try again proposed wording, and I'm fine with moving it up in the letter. As the person putting the letter together, you can put it where you think it fits best, but I would propose the sentence that be added. The community has expressed a strong desire to preserve this area as open space for the future.
Can I just ask a quick question on procedure from here? So.
Hold on a second here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let Lisa read it back and make sure she's got it.
Okay.
you say it one more time.
No.
Community
I'm sorry, I don't want that.
I will try,
Community-
I'll try again.
Community expressed
The
a strong-
Midcoast Community the council has heard a strong expression from the community that, I've lost it. Anybody else capture what I
The
said?
council,
Community has expressed, I'm sorry, the community has
Okay, you got it?
expressed strong desire to preserve this area of what?
it says preserve the open space
As
for the
open
future.
space
As
for
open
the
space
future.
For the open space
All right,
character of
here's
the
the
area.
thing, here's the thing. I didn't get that. I get that yeah, that would be nice, but clearly, if you know anything, you gotta have a buyer before you're gonna do that. And, you can't just tell them they can't build anything.
Well, but you
And
can
wait a minute,
under
let me
ESHA.
finish. Let me finish. What I heard here was lots of offers to compromise. I heard people say, this area, the prairie, the cliff, the trail, these are the important to save. Let's figure out ways to do that. Houses could be on Valamar. I did not hear I did not hear that as the consensus of the room at all.
Okay, how
I
about,
heard-
instead of this area, the coastal prairie
Well,
area?
let me jump in, and this is the problem with trying to amend a letter on the fly in real time. Okay, we're trying to work out language, and we're coming up with a language that I agree with Lisa on this. I did not hear a unanimous call for leaving it as open space. I heard a lot of sentiment about how much people love it, but I also heard a lot of discussion of compromising, maybe less structures. So this is the problem with attaching something at the end, especially something with an emotional component of what the letter that Lisa has written is fact, cited. And that's kind of the tenor that the letter is intended to have, in my understanding of how Lisa approached it. And it's the feeling that I would like to have this letter too. I understand we want to capture the emotion, we want to make sure that people understand how much this means to people. However, we are now getting into the weeds of like, how do you specifically word that so it accurately captures what happens here tonight without injecting emotion into it? So and again, I appreciate this discussion. This is the kind of discussion we are here to have about a letter like this. After hearing this discussion, my feeling is, I've now gone back to, my feeling is I support this letter as is for the purposes that it was written to serve, which is laying out a specific fact-based set of arguments, or an argument that is fact-based, and letting the emotion have a different arena. It was heard here tonight, it's on video, it's in the minutes, and it will be in Dave Holbrook's letter as well as his consciousness. So personally, I don't support amending this letter.
I'd just like to point out, the applicant's here, this is the main thing.
Yeah.
He wants to hear our input, and he's listening. And he has heard the people that came to speak. And so this is our goal here. He came, he's listening, this is all good. And I think the ask in this letter is bear with me, it's a long sentence, but reconfiguring and reducing the number of parcels, locating the houses along Dalamar among mature cypress trees, and permanently protecting the sensitive habitats, public trail, and bluff cliff retreat area through an enforceable restriction such as a conservation easement would allow advantageous use of the property without significant adverse impacts. I don't think this is the place for emotion. I think he wants to know, he needs information to decide what they're gonna do next.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the letter as written.
I will second.
Hold that thought for 1 second, please. So parliamentary procedure is not my specialty, but can we propose a second motion sitting concurrently with the first one that asks that the letter be amended and have those two voted
The
out?
other one was seconded.
There's two ways, either the maker and the second can withdraw the motion of the second, or the second motion can be offered as a replacement motion.
And normally you can also, you can amend a motion, but in this case, it doesn't make sense to amend the motion. Come on, audience members, this is important parliamentary procedure. I will withdraw my original motion.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table that's been seconded to approve the letter as is. Okay, let's take a vote. The motion is to approve the letter as currently written. I vote aye.
I say all in favor.
All in favor?
No, not all in favor,
Okay,
but
okay, let me
abstain.
just count. Hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 yes, and one abstention. Okay, 6-0-1 to approve this letter as written. Thank you, Lisa, appreciate that. Thank you, council, for discussing this, really. I mean, I feel like this is part of why we're here, is to have this discussion. What is the letter? What are we trying to do? What did the audience say? I think that was a successful exercise right there. Okay.
Thanks for bearing with us.
No, I just want to say thank you. This has been actually really, really helpful, and I wish other communities had this type of forum to have this kind of discussion. It's very useful. And
Thank you for
very
participating.
appreciated the time that you guys spend doing this. I know it takes a lot of time. It was very thoughtful, and it was good.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that.
We'll be looking forward to your application.
Okay, we have one more item on the agenda. This is, the item is MCC support for county grant application, which is due December 18th, so we're really on the time crunch here, for $517,000 for design through construction of a pedestrian crossing at the Montera Lighthouse and 16th Street. So this is supposed to be Nicholas's item. He was not able to make it tonight. I will carry through as best as possible. The county recently learned that the crossing at 16th Street with the flashing beacon could not be included in the current congestion and safety improvement project that we've been working on for years, especially in the last couple years. So that project is not eligible, that crossing, that design is not eligible for that project. However, Nicholas has discovered and been able to find $517,000 that we can get to specifically put in this pedestrian crossing at the lighthouse. The desired outcome of this agenda item is to authorize the MCC chair to write and submit a letter of support for the grant application. 1 second, Leonard. I'm just going to be upfront and say this is about all I know about this. I have some questions. Nicholas is not here to answer. I've been assured that this is a pretty straightforward thing. If it's where he's found $517,000, we can take that. We can get this crossing at the lighthouse done on a fast track, separate from all the other crossings that we've been talking about in the 5 Crossings project. That's so. As a general approval of us getting that money to do this project, that's what's on the table here. Whether we're going to write a letter to say yes, go ahead and get the money. We approve of that. Lisa.
So just to qualify, he hasn't found the money. He's found a place where we can apply and get the money.
Thank
It's
you.
a big difference.
Yes.
We don't know the details of that grant. I asked him to write a memo, he said he didn't have time. This grant, I don't know, did you already say this, that this would cover everything through construction for this one crossing?
Design through construction.
All right, so I asked him if because the TA grant that we got in 2012 for these crossings, it is congestion management. And it's like, so the idea was supposed to help with congestion, and yet really, a lot of it was just about safety for the crossings. So the fact that we got this, if you remember back a year and a half ago when we saw the first set of alternatives for the crossings, you had, every single crossing was a painted crosswalk with either the flashing beacons or the overhead hybrid beacon. And so basically pretty much what's been decided for the lighthouse crossing. They were all that. And we were saying, like, well, where's our arranged meetings and all that? But it's like, so thinking about what Nicholas said, that so the only one they're coming forward now that's like this with the painted crossing and the push button is the lighthouse, and the TA is saying, no, this doesn't qualify for this grant. And I'm thinking, well, if that doesn't, then none of them would have, as we first saw them last year ago June. And so I asked him the question, and he said, well, it's not that simple. But he didn't really answer the question, and he's not here tonight. So that's kind of the murky part. But it is sort of a side issue in that basically the issue here now is, do we want to forge ahead and support this crossing location and design all the way through to construction? What are the repercussions of that? Is this fund of money? Where's the fund of money? Will it then make it more difficult to get funding for another project? Because I'm seeing issues with the lighthouse crossing there as far as if pedestrians feel entitled to push the button and then walk out in front of a car, then people are going to be left with the decision, should I run over the pedestrian or risk getting rear-ended? And this is the same situation we had there before Caltrans put in the left turn, because when you wanted to make a left turn, then you were getting killed by being rear-ended. Well, now I'm going to put, so I'm ambivalent about it, clearly, about this crossing treatment, and I said to him, well, maybe we should just let this quietly die. Oh, no, we shouldn't do that, we should go forward. So I don't know, and on the other hand, either we decide to authorize the letter tonight, or he misses, well, he can still apply for the grant, he just won't have our letter.
Thank you, Lisa. Other council comments, Dave?
So, as a very strong proponent for a crossing at that location, that is where the coastal trail is going to cross. There are already quite a few people crossing there because of the hostel. I cross there regularly, many other people do. It's probably one of the 4 highest crossing points of the highway for people that are walking. So yeah, I think we should go ahead with it. And we heard quite a bit of community discussion. And you know, we never had a ranking of most important to least important in any of those, but I think there was a fair number of people who thought it was important. So yeah, I think we should support this. I think in our authorization for you to write this, if when you get the details from Nicholas, you are not happy, you think it's something different than we signed up for, then I believe we can put in the language authorizing you to write this, that you have the decision to not write the letter. And I would be happy to make the motion on that basis.
Okay.
That sounds reasonable.
1 second, Leonard.
I gotta hear that explained again.
What Dave said?
Yeah.
I think maybe Dave should say it again, but I think what I heard was that this design is the one that was generally approved and selected over the course of several public meetings. It is in the phase 1 category of the first projects that we heard last month that were going to be done. So it's not like this is a mystery project or anything. That we know what we're getting into here. Dave's saying that this is one of the highest crossing areas. And I think what he said is the council will authorize me to write the letter, but if I feel that when I get the information from Nicholas, that it's insufficient or contradictory to what we originally told, or there's something that doesn't seem right to me, or that I think is a red flag, that I have the authorization not to write the letter. I mean, this is, I think so is
That's what I was trying to say, and yes, it's a judgment call, that's pretty fuzzy, but I think this is a pretty special situation, and the only other alternative is for us to call an emergency meeting for next week, which I don't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think my reluctance on this, and not that I'm gonna vote against it, but my reluctance on this is I don't like the rushed nature of it and the lack of information. I feel like I'm writing a blank check here, or you guys are authorizing a blank check, and you don't know what you're gonna get. Yes, Laura.
Having discussed these crossings for so many, many hours, and no offense to your memory, I thought there was discussion about different concerns, such as the one that Lisa brought up, and we talked about different reiterations and what was plus and negatives, and so I'm not remembering it as rah, 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 this is what we want to do. And essentially, to me, if the council writes this letter, we're saying, yes, this is what the community wants, and this is what, et cetera, et cetera. So personally, I'm not there.
Remember that this is authorizing a grant. Any design work that's done. Grant application, sorry. Any design work that's done has to be reviewed before it goes to construction.
But there's a lot of time and energy put into putting a grant together. I mean,
The county will be doing that work, though.
that's my tax dollars.
There's no.
The lion's share of the design's been approved already, right?
Well, that's what the discussion is about.
So it is absolutely true that we didn't say, oh, yes, that's phase one. The county grouped it into phase one based on the $3 million limit per phase. So it wasn't like the community said, yes, we think this is in the top priority.
Yes.
That part I completely agree with. People did say what Lisa said, that once you have a crosswalk, somebody's gonna just assume it's okay and run over and hit the light and run and go. And, people already cross there. I freak people out by the way I cross, because I look the driver in the eye and then I walk. Because you have a legal right to cross, pedestrian has the right of way. So
But this
people
isn't,
already
this
are
isn't
doing
about the
exactly
value of the
that.
crossing, though.
What's that?
I don't think this is about the value of the crossing. I think this is, for me, I'm a process person. I think that this is about the process as opposed to, is it good, is it bad to have the crossing.
But the type of crossing they proposed to get the grant for is the one which, in the county summary of all the comments, they believe was the most highly chosen.
I trust that. It's gonna be all one. We've got a picture of it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what they're gonna get a grant that would take, if they get it, they will take it all the way through construction. I don't question any of that. I'm concerned because, the council has gone to bat for a crossing at this location, and always, every time we spoke up when we supported the first grant in 2012 for this project, it was with the picture in mind that's in the Highway Safety Mobility Study of a median refuge, and it looked perfect. And that's what we had in mind. And then later, after they got the grant, they said, oh, the lighthouse isn't in there. And we wrote a special letter asking just to add this location back to the grant, and they did. But always, it was this picture we had in mind with the raised median refuge island, or something, and it wasn't the current design. So then the process as it worked its way through was, you had a choice for this location, either Alt 1 or some horrendous extension of raised medians and road wide and all this stuff, which nobody's gonna vote for that. And so, and the survey was done with, 25 people participated. So it's like, and we're not gonna hash the relevance of that process out here. What irks me is that to specifically call out for the council once again to support this particular location, and now at this point to endorse alternative one,
on a rush too. I don't like
Yeah,
on the rush.
So then we're on record, first, then we're on record over and over, and then finally knowing what the design is gonna be, we're on record for, yes, this is important, do that. And so then when they put the crossing in, somebody gets, you know, it's like, I'm not thrilled with the design.
I agree. However, I'm not saying that bridge has already been crossed, but it seems like that design alternative one, or A, was the one that the county was gonna go with. So we're not here to hash that out, but let me ask this question, kind of the reverse of what Lisa just said. What is the implication for the Midcoast, for the MCC, if we don't support this grant application? Will this be seen as, hey, this was your chance to put up or shut up, and you guys said no. So you must not want it that bad, because here we are offering you to do something for it to get this thing through, and you guys say, no, you don't want it. I'm not saying that's my position. I'm asking that as a question to the council. Like, do we need to consider the impact that us not supporting this grant application would have for future projects out here? Aaron, sorry?
I was just gonna say, is it an all or nothing proposition? I mean, can we support the application for a grant without specifically supporting the grant to be the flashing beacon?
No, that's what it's for.
It has to be for that,
Yes,
okay.
that's what it is.
Well, and the other thing of it too is that I'm a little concerned that the person who wants this on the agenda isn't here. And I understand there's a time limit, you know, it's due the 18th, but like, he's not here, we're all sort of trying to figure out on his behalf what he's trying to accomplish.
He knew I had questions about it, and I asked him to write a memo.
Yeah.
Several weeks ago. And so we don't even have that. So the questions are unanswered. And
I'd like to make a motion that we do not authorize the MCC chair to write a letter of support for the grant application.
Can I make an addendum to your motion, or not?
Well, wait a minute, that's,
it's better to
You're-
make the
you're-
positive motion and vote against it.
yeah, your motion actually doesn't support the agenda item.
Oh, good. I'm just kidding.
The Coastal Commission, what they would say is, I move we approve this letter and I recommend a no vote. That's how they would do it.
Right, and I do want to say, the council as a whole did not envision medians there, because I'm on the council, and I absolutely never envisioned a median there.
What about the Highway 1 Safety Mobility Study?
Yes.
There was a median.
So, and people who are no longer on the council were part of that and did envision a median. And I'm sure some of the people still on the council envisioned a median, but it wasn't the entire council.
Do we still have your proposal that we tentatively authorize a letter to be written on the floor?
We technically do not have a motion on the floor, I
No,
believe.
I just described what the motion would be if I made it. And Dan made a motion.
Is that a technically legal motion?
I think it would have to be phrased the way that Lisa rephrased it.
I
Okay.
move we authorize the chair to write and submit a letter of support for the grant application.
Okay, so we have a motion that,
Want a second?
and we're
Says
looking
what-
for a second. The motion is that we authorize MCC chair to write and submit a letter of support for the grant application.
And I
That's
would-
the motion.
And before we take the vote, Leonard still wants to
Nobody
speak.
seconded
I want to point out, I'd like to amend the motion to say, at the discretion of the chair.
How do people feel about that amendment?
A second.
I'm not liking the amendment. I think that if there was any question that this design was gonna change, or that there was some, those weren't the doubts I had about the design. That's, you know, he's saying, this was the approved thing, they're not gonna switch that now. So I don't see how that's a discretion of the chair to change their mind and say, if the council voted to approve it, and decide, well, now I'm not liking this anymore, I'm not gonna write it.
Well,
it doesn't
it's
work.
based on the
Works
fact
out.
that we don't have all the information.
Well, that's not the information we're missing.
Well, you may have that information. I didn't see even that much information, Nicholas.
Yeah.
Okay, so the original motion is exactly as stated here on the agenda, authorize it.
So
Dave
Lisa's
has-
rejected the amendment. I'm not going to push for a
Okay.
vote on the amendment, so.
Okay,
let's-
so do I have a second on that? Do I have a second on this motion?
Yes.
You
Wait a
proposed
minute,
it.
No,
I got lost in the motion.
Lisa,
Lisa proposed it. and Dan seconded.
The
Okay.
motion is exactly what's written in the.
Right.
got you.
Okay, and
I
Dan is
see, I see.
seconding
I
it.
understand how you're doing it.
So let's just hold that right there. There's a motion on the table with a second. Leonard, would you like to say something?
He wanted to say something 10 minutes ago.
For those of us who are on information overload, what are the specifics of this? The 2 points that I'm looking for the answer to that question on are, is there or is there not the raised median included? And, okay,
No, there's not.
no raised median,
It's the same
and,
design, alternative one, it's alternative one.
Okay, but I don't remember.
On the prize. Well, it's a crossing with a pedestrian-operated flashing beacon.
and it's only flashing when there's somebody there pushing
When
the
they
button
push
waiting
the
to
button.
cross.
Yes, that's what one, that
Um,
application.
Because if it was continuously flashing, I would be unconditionally
No.
opposed to it. And I still think it's a bad idea to do it without the raised median. I'd kind of like to hear more from Dave on what's wrong with the raised median, because unless you're going to have a full stop, you really need the safe refuge. Even though the highway is probably narrower there than in much of the rest of the mid-coast, I really think that the safe refuges are a good idea. And this Caltrans, and I said this at a previous recent council meeting, Caltrans is full of it when they say we have to do, 500-foot-long raised medians. Go look at Capistrano. There's a raised median on each side of Capistrano that's like 2 car lengths long, so it's 40 feet max. It's probably 30 or 35 feet. And I think it's only this wide, so.
The Caltrans never said it had to be 500 feet. The
Well,
consultants never said Caltrans said it had to be.
Somebody said it had to be really long.
It was their proposal to cover the entire space. You can't have it stop and start frequently.
Well,
Okay,
but
but
in
we're
that
not-
location, you can do a short one, and so, if, I really, I think we need to do raised medians.
Okay, so the nature of the design is not in question here. Whether you like that design or not will influence your vote, but we're not changing the design here. The design is going with alternative one as proposed at the 5 crossings meetings over the last couple years, and the one that was generally, although not uniformly agreed upon at the last meeting. I think it was in first part of November here. So, we're back to our motion. Okay,
Clarifying question only before we vote. Are you okay with not having any discretion on whether you write the letter or not?
I'm fine with that because I don't like this process. Now, I'm trying to take my emotion out of it. I don't like to be rushed. I don't like the process. I don't like a blank check. But I know what the design is. It's been generally agreed upon. I trust Nicholas. It's a grant application for which there'll be further discussion about the design after the application has been approved. So I'm fine with not having the discretion to not write the letter. I think exactly as the motion was presented, we either vote up or down on that.
If I may make a comment.
Yes, Laura.
In terms of working with Nicholas or working with the county, I think you set a precedent. And that is, oh, sorry, because, this has gone on for years. Got it in at the last, you guys are gonna be in an emergency situation. And so here's our choice.
I want to point out that Nicholas is working 2 jobs on this.
Pardon me?
Simultaneously.
I'm not blaming Nicholas.
He's done a good job.
I'm not blaming Nicholas. This isn't about Nicholas as far as I'm concerned. This is about a process.
Right.
And we're being put in the position of doing it wrong.
As an additional comment, could we not state that we do not support the grant application due to the fact that we did not have accurate response time, and that county rep was not here to address our questions or concerns?
I think.
Can I comment on that? I think what they're wanting this for is to attach to the grant application to show that there's community support for this.
Okay.
So that whoever is reviewing the grant application probably doesn't really care about that.
Okay.
Right. And that will be captured in the minutes,
Okay.
should we feel like we need to defend ourselves to the community.
Okay, thanks.
You got all that, Lisa?
So we're back to the decision point of, can we swallow our displeasure with the process for the ultimate goal of getting this crossing?
Yeah.
Stop
Yes, yes. That would probably be a communication that I would want to have anyways, whether that was officially authorized or not, but that's not something we're gonna authorize you. So do you swallow your displeasure with the process in order to get the end goal? Or do we stick with the idea, we don't want to set precedent, we don't like being rushed, but take the risk of it having negative downstream effects of, you know, we thought you guys wanted these crossings. Here we are, we're doing it for you. You said no. You said you wouldn't support the application, so you must not want it that bad. I'm not, Nicholas has never said that, I'm not putting words into his mouth. I'm paraphrasing, or I'm basically thinking about what county reaction could be, a county with a big C, nobody in particular.
Question. It's probably been answered, but it's late and my brain didn't register. Okay, so we approved this. We've got county staff working on putting together a grant application, and then what happens from there? I'm trying to, I want to understand the impact of what we're voting on totally.
So it's my understanding that we are gonna write this pretty basic letter in support of this grant application. As Claire mentioned, I think that it's gonna be then appended to the application.
Right.
So that the grant makers see that this has community support, has the support of the advisory council for the community.
That's the piece that I'm just having a hard time with, and I know, Dave, I know you feel pretty strongly that that's what it is. And darn, it's like, I like my data, and I just remember so much discussion around this, so that's what's holding me up.
Well, so I'm gonna make my statement, and everybody will have the vote, and everybody votes as they will. I don't like the process, I don't like being rushed, I really don't like it. However, I believe that I am going to vote yes on this motion because I support the idea that they're trying to do something for us. And it's something that has been somewhat accepted as a design proposal. It's not anything new. It's not that we don't have any idea what's going to go there. We know what they're talking about. It's a grant application. Though I'm not happy, I feel that the bigger benefit here is to show community support for this application.
Can I call the question?
And for the, well,
May I call the question?
Hold on,
I can't stop you from calling the question.
10:16.
Just one thing I'd
What's
like
the
to
question,
add.
the vote?
Let me
Yeah.
call the
Yeah.
vote.
Yep,
One
Dan?
more discussion here. I think
Well,
voting.
wait. She's called the question.
I know, but I didn't
But,
make my.
yeah, but Dan, we either let her call the question or we vote to not let her call the question.
I'm asking-
You can't just keep talking.
Okay, well, I'm just asking for one moment to, add to the discussion. That's it.
Lisa?
Sure.
Can Dan make an additional comment? Okay, Dan?
So I think, by, a yes vote here is just gonna encourage more 11th hour stuff in the future. And I just don't think that this 11th hour process is, it's essentially giving MCC approval for that design, and, I haven't even seen the complete results of all of the, compiled results of the community, to where they came to decide that, no, yes, this is what the community wants. I haven't been convinced that this is what the community wants. Therefore, I'm gonna vote no.
All right, Lisa? You want to call the question?
Oh, when I say call the question, that means I would like you to ask for the vote.
Okay. And what is my specific language to call the vote?
It's a learning process.
Motion is,
We've got the motion on the table, it's been seconded.
all right, and so all in favor, then you say all in favor.
Okay, thank you for the tutorial.
Yeah.
Yes, I will restate the motion.
Right here on the agenda.
There is a motion on the table to authorize the MCC chair to write and submit a letter of support for the grant application for the crossing at 16th Street in Montera. It has been seconded.
All in favor?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 2, 4, 2, and abstentions? 4, 2, 1. The measure passes. I will write and submit a letter of support for the grant application.
And if this is the proper place to say this, we may want to also do something to communicate to Nicholas or whoever else is involved our displeasure.
Nicholas has heard it, but Chris has already said so.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not happy with the process. No, definitely not, and I will discuss that with Nick. It's not that I'm not gonna lecture him, but I'm just gonna say we did not appreciate the process. It puts us in a tough spot.
Most of us, that's known as lack of planning on your part, does not justify an emergency on my part.
I couldn't remember it. It was like, I know, yes.
But
Excellent,
at this
thank you.
time,
We don't
we
know
can move
why he-
forward, right? At this time,
We don't know why he couldn't make the meeting. He was a last minute not being able to make it.
Okay. That concludes the regular agenda. Council activity. Does anybody like to discuss correspondence received and meetings attended?
Yes,
Okay.
several things.
Great.
I attended the Half Moon Bay City Council meeting where they approved the 22,000 square foot library. There was strong community sentiment to get it done, whatever it took. There were also quite a few people who were unhappy that the size of the library was decreased, but
Were you able to tell of the people that supported and the people that didn't support? Could you differentiate any city of Half Moon Bay versus county population?
most of the people who spoke were from Half Moon Bay. There were a number of people from the Midcoast as well.
And support or?
I believe that the people who thought even 22,000 feet was too big were mostly, that most of the people from the Midcoast who spoke thought even that was too big.
Thank you.
I also attended the Half Moon Bay General Plan Synthesis Session. As was mentioned by somebody during the meeting earlier tonight, open space is still a really big issue. They abandoned the transfer of development rights from the PDU areas, and even said it was premature to have brought it up.
PUD?
What's the TDR? Yeah.
You said PUD, you mean PUD?
Yes, thank you. PUD, yes, planned unit developments. Sorry. PDU is something else altogether. Too many three-letter acronyms. And I believe that was the major, Mid-Peninsula Open Space District is looking for citizens who want to be on the advisory committee to determine how the Measure AA money is spent. I believe the deadline is in the next week or two. So
Go to their
anybody
website.
sees this on the video, go for it.
Go to their website for the application?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Aaron?
Oh, do you want to go for it?
No, go ahead.
So I just wanted to report that I went to the meeting for the Montero Water and Sanitary District rate increase with Recology. And I just wanted to kind of publicly state that I'm going to get, these numbers are close, but maybe not exactly correct. So there were approximately 1,750 homes that would be affected by the rate increase, which was is going to be 48% next year, a 48% increase next year. What we needed was approximately 900 homes to write a letter to the Montero Water and Sanitary District stating that they did not agree with the increase, at which point we would have been able to go back to Recology and renegotiate. They ended up with a total of about 24 letters. So I just would like to say that if next year people that were affected by that are unhappy, they should have written a letter. And that's all I would like to say.
Thanks, Aaron.
Half Moon Bay Review reported the total number of letters as 46, so apparently a few came in.
A little
later.
better.
Wow, 46.
Yep.
Laura?
Well, we're getting closer to applicant interviews for Coastside Design Review Committee, so we have 4 applicants, and we're hoping for next Monday.
Great.
So hopefully that will happen.
Great.
I'm just waiting to hear back.
Thank you. Lisa?
7th Street fence.
Still up.
Westerfield's conditional appeal to the Coastal Commission has been officially withdrawn. DPW says that after Westerfield removes the fence, they'll install the bollards, but they won't give a time frame.
They did say it might be delayed by the storm.
But not really.
Storms, yeah.
I know, right? Maybe
Yeah.
the storms will take care of it for us. Thank you, Lisa. Do you have anything else? Claire? No. The only thing Dan, the only thing I have is tomorrow is Coastline Design Review Committee. There's, it's probably gonna be about a 10-hour meeting. It's starting at 11. Got a 2-hour study
11?
session, 5 things on the docket, including 2 triplexes in El Granado. So if you're interested in that, please come to the CDRC meeting. The triplex projects, 2 separate projects.
Oh, is that up on Portola?
Yeah,
both up there.
Portola and Coronado. Those will be the last 2 items on the agenda, I think at like 5 and 6 o'clock, but the way CDRC goes, it'll probably be more like 6:30 and 8 o'clock, so sleep well tonight. And that's all I have, okay?
Can
Oh,
you make me
yes.
think of something?
Sure.
So Dave and I have been trying all year to get better, to get the county to better supply us with the early referrals so we know what's coming along. And so I have, I just want, so this business with Balmar Bluff, basically, we would never have known this project was in the works to ask for a pre-application workshop unless Lenny Roberts told me about it. The applicant contacted her directly. The county, and then once I had a PLN number, I could look on the county site, see that stuff had been going on for months. And so I give up on that process now for staying informed, and I went, so the county online site, you can't just ask for a numerical order list of all the permit applications. You have to punch in the number. So basically you have to, so I did 2015, I punched in every number, PLN 2015 up to 500 and whatever it was, and I have a database, and I pulled off all the ones that have reflected Midcoast, which is interesting, and I haven't totally absorbed it yet, but, so the information is there. The stuff that's there that we never hear about, for instance, the triplexes, triplexes, whatever, you know, it's interesting that they, you know, and there's other stuff too. And interesting stuff going on that I generated questions I had for Lisa Asas. It's informative. At some point I'll put this together. I've just been really busy with Balmar Bluff and all, but it seems like that's the only route to go. And when I figure out a way to, because I have FileMaker, when I figure out a way to share this table, and I'm trying to keep track of, you know, what, so I entered the project in, and when we heard about it, how we heard about it, if we commented, so I'm just trying to keep track of all the projects.
The county at one time did maintain a spreadsheet of exactly that info.
I found that in the
Excel
files,
spreadsheet.
really old.
But
Yeah.
for some reason they
No, the
stopped.
county didn't do it.
That's because they made this wonderful online site that they contracted with that you can't look things up.
Just for future reference, we had this exact same problem years and years ago, and we went to the director of plan, I guess it would be Steve Monowitz's position. So we don't need to decide how to do it right now, but that's something that should be in our list, because then they, or he, that position, tracks with the planners, and a lot of the time, the planners just don't know.
Well, so we've been working on this for a year, and it's totally hit or miss, and that is more work and with unsuccessful result than to do what I just described that I did.
Oh, I'm not
Just
saying
look
you
at all of
shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying to augment your efforts, because we won't always have a you to do that.
Can I just ask one quick question? Why, the applicant reached out to Lenny, and I was just curious as to why.
Interesting. Well, so 2 years ago, it was the same person that was here tonight, said it had been recommended to him that he contact her to talk about these plans early on. And probably was someone at the county who did that. This is 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so he contacted her again and wanted to meet with her. And so she had paper plans from last August, and she loaned the stuff to me, and I see a PLN number on it, and it was like, you know, and then I
Right.
started digging through the MCC files to dig up our old stuff, but if it hadn't have been for a private citizen finding out about this and letting us know, we wouldn't have even been known to ask for this workshop that we had here tonight.
Which clearly generated quite a bit of.
It was very useful.
And when we did ask for it initially informally, they said no. So that's when we drafted the letter to formally ask for it, and they said yes.
Okay, thanks.
The Kraken and Byers, are they still the law firm on this one?
I haven't heard your name come up.
With these owners,
McCracken Byers split up years ago.
yeah.
Can we move forward?
But I've seen David Byers' name more recently, though. He was the lawyer that was with the previous round.
There's no lawyer at the moment whose name has come up.
So I do have one other thing for the community. Speaking of public notices, DPW notified us of 3 proposed new parking zones on the Midcoast. Carlos across on the west side across from the post office, a section near Quarry Park on the side adjacent to Quarry Park, and Murata Road on the west side along the bluff section. And that last one was justified on the basis of emergency access. San Carlos across from the post office was justified. Some citizens said they couldn't back out of the diagonal spots anymore if cars were parked there. The Quarry Road one is because one of the property owners on the other side has an RV vehicle that they can't maneuver when people park there. So the deadline for all of these was December 14th. One of them was a Word doc that I couldn't even get the marking on until Lisa sent it back to me as a PDF. I asked them to extend it past the January meeting so we can have it on the January agenda, but I just realized we hadn't heard anything back. So if anybody cares about it and hears this before December 14th, you can get in contact with DPW. I personally do not think that the one along Quarry Park is basically a ditch, so I don't mind that one too much, and there's plenty of parking at Quarry Park. The other 2, I believe, should not be done, and I have communicated that to them, but I have not heard back.
Can you elaborate on the Murata Road one? Because Murata Road, it's two lanes with nothing to spare, so you can't park there now.
Sorry, I said on the west side of Murata Road. It's on the east side of Murata Road, so in front of the Douglas Beach House, et cetera.
I thought it was both sides of Murata.
Well, it might be, but nobody can park on the west side anyway because you're in the traffic lane.
Right.
If you tried to be out of the traffic lane on the west side, you would be down the riprap. So effectively, it's only on the east side.
I have written a note to write an email to DPW asking for an update on the situation.
Okay, I will forward the correspondence to you again.
Thank you.
I would agree with you that the proposed restrictions in Moss Beach are not warranted.
Yeah, I pulled out of that parking space multiple times.
I don't know if we're supposed to talk about that because it's not on the
Yeah.
agenda,
Oh, okay.
but
We shouldn't.
since everybody else has already said what they think, I think there's some merit to the no parking in Moss Beach. I go to the post office a lot, and since they changed the parking arrangement on the one side, and on the other side, it's kind of dirt sliding, and so people park on the pavement right in the travel way. And so if you're trying to come down the street and somebody coming the other way, you're usually in the room. So,
As the rain garden went in, all of a sudden, then they put parking spaces 2 feet from the edge of the rain garden and drew the longest lines I've ever seen for
right.
car parking spaces ever. And, and they took away a good part of the street with this new striping in that location. So that's why.
People don't generally park on that side so much, but sometimes, like I say, I go to the post office a lot, and someone will park a vehicle that's for sale, right? So you see it as you exit the post office. And actually, I have to say, whenever I see that, I go tell the sheriff.
Right, that's already against county ordinance.
Okay, so I will follow up with DPW, not to express my feelings on it, but to find out what the status of this is.
No emotion.
So let's move on to future agendas. We do not have a meeting on December 23rd because of the holidays. Then our next meeting is January 13th, 2016. We'll be looking at parallel trail crossings and possibly Sister Cities presentation.
So the other thing we should either set tonight or at that meeting is when our retreat will be.
Yes.
We can do that by email.
Yes, let's not do that tonight. I've written that as another thing
Yeah,
to.
I would, yeah. If we haven't decided by January 13th, be sure to put it on the agenda as DVD.
Yeah, I think that kind of thing is best done by email while people are home looking at their calendars.
Yep.
But it's not. Okay.
Motion adjourned. I move we adjourn.
Sold.
Hey, it's not our latest